Who's going to win, Aqua or Kokosasa? It
well,
is Zoo Warlock versus the Secret Hunter, which we've seen many times struggle on stream just today.
Yeah, but I feel like Kokosasa's in a much better position than we saw earlier with Surrender playing this match that you and I cast. You know, in Aqua was Treads Red in that style of matchup, and where Kokosasa was Surrender, and in Voidwalker was a Flame Imp instead. And the fact that it's a Voidwalker this game really hurts Aqua, because that means the Secret Keeper could come down, and it didn't die instantly. Job done. That's a problem for Aqua. It's a big problem, in fact.
And if he does choose to kill it, boom, Snake Trap, boom, Venom Strike Trap. Board back in control. He's even got a Flanking Strike to back it up.
Yeah, this hand from Aqua is, you know, quite awkward. I'm on fire today.
Yeah. Like Kobold Librarian.
Yeah. You're gonna draw a card! Aqua's hand is quite poor.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call this exciting.
In the light's name.
It's exciting if you're a Kokosasa fan.
Yeah. And no copies of Despicable Dreadlord in Aqua's deck. So, you know, the ability to come back from minions being weakened at 1 health and being able to fight back against that, it's non-existent. And with an open deck list format that this tournament is, their opponents know that. So Kokosasa knows exactly how and how not to trade in this particular matchup.
Yeah, Blood Knight, though, the card discarded, so pretty good for Aqua, I guess. Well, that's given he has something live going into the next turn, which is not the case.
Yeah.
Now he's got Dead Fungal Man. So actually, Blood Knight would have been pretty much the only card he could play on this turn that would give him any sort of benefit. Well, say goodbye to the Fungalmancers.
Goodbye, Fungalmancers.
Say hello to the Doomguard.
Hello, Doomguard.
Say goodbye to the Secret Keeper. Don't play a game of Catch the Chicken with me. I'll win every time.
Goodbye, Secret Keeper.
Don't take a game of My Pride's on the line with Admirable. He'll win every time.
Well, everything's on fire right now if you're an Aqua spot, I can tell you that.
Yeah, Voodoo Doctor off the top, the Nuts Draw. Nope, gets the Life Drinker.
Basically the same thing.
Yeah, I guess he'll be able to fit in a free Happy Goal next turn, but Kokosasa just drew
a Mossy Horror, left side of his hand.
He did draw that earlier on in the game.
So this is the opposite of what you saw earlier, and so much of this has to do with follow-up in the early game. You know, again, Surrender, when he plays under immediate pressure, everything fell apart. For Aqua this game, it was, you know, he's on the receiving end of that. It gives you a perspective of the matchup and how important the early game is. It is paramount to these aggressive decks that you're able to take control of the board and then keep control of that board.
Yeah.
If you're not able to do the second part because your opponent's not playing anything, then it's important to be able to have an explosive style of endgame play, whether that be through insane amounts of value or whether that be from some giant combination of cards that blows your opponent. Kokosasa's position, the way that that deck can do that against late game stuff, is simply Deathstalker Rexar. That is the one card that makes this style of deck work, is that you have so much value generation towards the end of the game if you're against one of those control decks.
Yeah, if you look at the mulligan win rate of all cards in this Secret Hunter versus, let's say, Control Warrior, it's like everything is like 50% or under, and then Deathstalker Rexar on the mulligan's like 62%.
Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous just how crazy that ends up being. And Kokosasa free to just trade off the board as much as possible because he knows Aqua's playing off the top of his deck. And he brings it to a game 5.
Bada bing, bada boom. It's easy as that. You just have to blow up all of your opponent's stuff. It's that easy.
That's what I'm saying. But these guys' pace of play is pretty quick too.
That's something that has seemed to be, you know, quite noticeable about Asia Pacific, is the pace of play being much higher, I'd say, than Europe or Americas.
Yeah, and in the past I would have accounted that to one, in the past they didn't have as many majors. So they weren't used to playing in an environment where they have to play for a very long time. So they're trying to, you know, conserve that time. But now it's not the case because they've just made tour stops as every other region. So I don't know what it is, but both these players currently sitting at 1-1. This is essentially a must-win game because starting off 1-2 in Swiss rounds
You're done.
You're pretty much done unless you win out from there, and all the opponents that you played early on
Just keep winning.
just win out as well.
Yeah.
So it ends up getting pretty weird, and maybe they're just sort of in their heads right now. They lost a match early on, so they're saying, let me just play fast. Let me just get through these matches because I need to win out anyway, so I might as well just try and win as fast as possible.
And that's a good way to sometimes ensure that you don't win, is to play super fast and you end up making mistakes.
But everybody gets to that point when they play in rank play where they just like lose, a long game and they're like, oh man, I lost this 20-minute game. Now I got to make back that rating, so I got to play super quickly in order to do so. Who knows? But
it makes sense. I mean, that's something that I find myself doing quite often, is just kind of autopiloting through a game. If you want to win more games of Hearthstone, don't do that.
Yeah. If you want to play more games of Hearthstone, do that.
Yeah, that's a great way to play some more games.
Aqua, very awkward hand, but did get the infusion onto the Serenite chain gang.
Big important factor. Kogosasa very likely to hang on his Crystallizer, thanks to the SI7 agent.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How greedy do you get?
Oh yeah.
How greedy do you get?
Nah, not greedy.
Ah, okay. I wanted this to be insanely... Because think about it, your opponent just didn't play a 3-cost card. They didn't play a 1-cost card to go with it. What are they going to play on turn 4? It's almost certainly got to be something they drew at that point. I think there's an opportunity there for Aqua to maybe get greedy.
This guy's toast.
Then you're walking into Vile Spine Slayer territory. And honestly, this just looks pretty good. Yeah. Soulfire, I imagine, is pretty much in the forefront of Aqua's mind this turn.
Locked and loaded.
And ready to go. This is one of the tougher zoo hands to have when you have all the discard.
Someone call for the
Job done.
That's not really what Kogosasa was looking to get discarded.
No.
He wanted to see something big.
Aqua does have something big.
Yeah.
That's a Doom Guard.
Kogosasa's got some interesting play in hand, though. Giggling Inventor does buy a pretty significant amount of time. Again, doesn't have to worry about Despicable Dreadlord, not in Aqua's deck list.
Oh, big respect to Fungalmancer here, I think.
This guy's toast.
Really just wants to make sure he cuts down Aqua's board. Make sure that going into turn 5, it's as awkward as possible.
Yeah. I mean, Giggling Adventure is going to be pretty decent almost any time Kogosasa plays in the matchup. So why not use your weaker tools to take advantage?
And also, for later. As we saw earlier, Aqua has chosen the Blood Knight tech. So maybe Kogosasa just didn't want to get blown out by Blood Knight on a turn where it would have punished him the most. He wanted to make sure he cleared the board first.
Well,
if you don't say.
Sometimes you give your opponent additional time to draw Blood Knight.
That's also true.
Yeah, that's pretty bad news for Kogosasa. That was about the worst thing that could possibly happen. And favoring the Happy Ghoul coming down over the extra health of the Doom Guard.
Yeah, I like this. Complete mana utilization.
Ooh, don't like that. If you are a Kogosasa fan, that is a bad card to see right now. Bad South Sea deckhand. I think he's got to hold it.
For Vile Spine Slayer?
Second Cold Blood, something.
Well, he's used both Cold Bloods.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. He used the... Yeah, this is bad news.
Yeah.
I just... maybe you heard I smacked my hand down on the desk in exacerbation. I'm trying to figure out how Kogosasa wins this game now.
So many.
Maribel's devolved to narrating his own hand gestures. That's how bad of a position this is.
I was like, you can still draw Cold Blood. Maybe kill something. That's still pretty good.
Now you can still draw Myers and Stable Element.
That's true. Okay, I'm excited again. Yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm not really excited again. Perfectly honest.
Aqua really going to solidify that board lead here.
Stop calling me!
Brian Kilbert talked about taking 14.
There's only one place this
Yeah.
Blood Knight goes.
If this was like 5, I would still ship it face.
There is no Cold Bloods left. Leroy plus double South Sea deckhand
So many
would still not be enough.
possibilities.
Oh no, it
That
would be
would
enough.
be, 'cause
That would be.
that's a 4
Deadly
point
Poison Dagger, yeah. All right.
No way.
Okay.
No way. I'm not doing that.
That's 9 damage.
It's not quite a Pyroblast yet. When you reach Pyroblast damage territory, that's when I just stop counting the amount that my opponent can deal.
Yeah, his opponent would be thoroughly dead this turn.
Not a fan of that trade,
Now, Baku has been in the hand for a long time. He could have made the read that that was Leroy.
which is likely what ended up happening. And that's a solid read, I think.
This card's been in his hand for a while. He's floated a lot of mana. He hasn't been making very many strong plays.
It's either Baku and you win the game, or it's Leroy and sometimes you lose the game.
Very rarely do you lose the game.
Yeah, well, I meant like in the trade versus no trade scenario.
So many options.
Okay, I see.
I'm agreeing with your point,
Choose soon.
Oh, I see.
in case that wasn't clear.
He's trying to think, okay, if I draw Myra's Unstable Element next turn, is there any way I win by attacking face? Is there any way I win by killing this minion? I think he's attacking this minion to make sure there's less attacks on board, so if he draws Giggling Inventor,
That's what I would do.
it keeps him alive?
I mean, that's pretty much the only way for Kokusas to actually, win this game.
Yeah. Make sure he holds on to one cost card in case the next one is exactly Vilespine Slayer.
Whoa, that Solarium was like a life tap. 2 cards you can play the same turn.
How long can this go on? How long can this go on?
Not much longer, Star Knight Chain Gang.
I get
That's the series. Aqua moves up 2-1 after 3 rounds of Swiss play. Kokusasa moves down to 1-2, which unfortunately for him means it's pretty unlikely that he's going to be able to make that cut with a very competitive field, very specific, and on average, poor tiebreakers as we move forward since his opponents are going to be overall worst record. Coming back from 1-2 and still making the top 8 is very unlikely.
It's a very tough thing to do. But another tough thing to do is winning unfavorable matchups, which is pretty much what that series was entirely about. We saw the Secret Hunter overcome a bad one. We saw the Zoo Warlock beat Odd Rogue. Those are 2 circumstances that you don't expect to see when those games come up. And so I think that's like a pretty good illustration of how important the early game is when it comes to aggro matchups, and maybe some insight on how to solidify it and not get beat up by tech cards like Blood Knight.
Well put. But the series is in the books, but don't worry. We have more round 3 coverage coming up.
I'm so glad.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Asia Pacific Fall Playoffs. I'm TJ, once again joined by the Admiral. That's Admirable. And we have some more round 3 coverage before we get into round number 4. There's still some matches finishing up. And one of those matches that's finishing up is Roger versus Staz. Both these players 2-0. Both these players with some pretty impressive resumes.
Yeah, as you can see right at the tail end, if you caught it, I was going to point out that TJ
they saw it.
Ripped the deck lists out of the packet. So there's a giant tear at the top of this Roger deck list. I can't work under these conditions.
Me neither. Staz, surprisingly, though you may not have heard his name very often, is in the top 5 earners all time in Hearthstone.
Why is that?
Because of, I think it was WESG he won in 2015. One that took home like $250,000.
It's an absurd amount.
Absurd amount. He's also 2016. Apologies for that. But he's also just had a lot of results.
Yep.
He was in the finals of HCT. Was it Taipei? I don't know. I'll get confirmation on that in a second. But he lost to a fellow Filipino player, Switch, in the finals of that tournament. He was also at a championship, an Asia Pacific championship, in 2016. And on top of that, he also qualified for the World Championship qualifier in 2015, but wasn't able to go to visa reasons.
Yeah.
So he's been around for a very long time and has had some impressive results. He's just not necessarily a household name in Hearthstone yet.
You know, I would say that Staz is one of the prime reasons that I constantly give my canned speech of paying attention to results instead of necessarily just players winning championships. It's because Staz is really good. And the results back that up. But when it comes to actual number of titles, those can sometimes, you know, come far and few between. Like, it's far and few between. I want to say it backwards. Few and far between. They're not readily there in every single great player's resume. Sometimes they're still chasing that title, but again, the point to pay attention to is consistency. If they're constantly at the top, they're just one of the best.
Yeah. That's right. It was Taipei earlier this year, and there was actually a highlight on that tournament in the Tour, which is a documentary series that Hearthstone Esports produces. I'm sure you've seen some promos for it. It was the all-Filipino final of Staz versus Switch in that tournament. So pretty cool to see from a country that's pretty unrepresented in Hearthstone. Players like Chalk and Waiting Moon, who come from the Philippines as well, that rep that country really well. But don't have as many top-tier players as, say, Korea or Japan or Taiwan.
Roger's got a pretty significant play here. I was about to say Staz is about to be unrepresented in this game.
Ooh, he could hit the Dragon Hatcher with the Mossy Horror.
Nice. That actually is, you know, something at least. Like that.
Yeah.
When your opponent plays Dragon Hatcher, that card typically needs to go as quickly as possible, lest the game get out of hand. But I fear the damage has been done. Oh, well. That's Taunt Druid sometimes. They get to the end of the game, they're fairly safe on life total, and then the game pretty much starts to get way out of hand.
I mean, he's got like everything. He's going to pull another Dragon out, play Lich King, and then even if all that stuff dies, which, spoiler alert, it won't.
Yeah.
He can bring it all back with Hadronach's Natural Eye.
Yeah, and if you've been paying attention to the videos in between some of the matches, you will know that saved for that specific reason. The endless summoning of taunt minions in the way.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Staz, his Hunter deck does not have some of those glaring weaknesses that we learned of Taunt Druid. He can't put additional beasts in the pool. He wasn't able to kill Roger quick enough before he got to that turn 9, which is their power turn.
And suddenly, he's dead. So, game number 4. Roger able to not die early on, and then make some big stuff. It's a good deck.
Sometimes making big stuff just gets you there.
Yeah, it's not the best deck.
Well, I
Mainly
think
because it's one of the opposite ones of that.
In this meta, it's actually pretty well positioned.
I agree with that.
There's a lot of board-centric aggressive decks that don't kill you too fast to where you can't get to those turns.
Yeah.
And just putting taunt minions in the way sometimes is enough.
And I think that's one of the things about Taunt Druid that's so interesting in this metagame is when the aggressive decks rely on board presence, what that means is a lot of times their minions are more resilient than they are more powerful on their own. So being able to have 2 minions in play on turn 5, for instance, with Fungalmancer, that's really the big power turn for a lot of aggressive decks. And that doesn't get things out of hand unless you're trying to go toe-to-toe with that style of strategy. You go minion for minion with them. Taunt Druid's trying to simply bypass all that nonsense and just start playing big stuff.
Not as much big stuff as Big Druid. And we actually, in Europe playoffs, saw a few big Taunt Druids.
Yeah.
Which ran like Ysera and Tyrannus, as well as the Taunt package, to really just drive it home and give you some extra gas against control decks, who, if they can just remove all your taunts and you're out of stuff, then, well, you're done for. But we can get into game number 4 here. Stabs once again on the Hunter, this time with a double Spellstone start.
Yeah, but that's the Keleseth start for Roger. Now, granted, I will say that the Hunter deck's not quite as powerful with Keleseth as like a Zoo deck, for instance.
Yeah, because they're not drawing an extra card every turn.
And their minions, tend to just be, I'd say, a little bit more defensive oriented on average. You're looking at drawing stuff like Spider Bomb and Devil Sword Egg. You're not drawing Doom Guards and 3 mana 3/3s and stuff like that. Just good old fashioned stuff.
Yeah. So we talked about Saz a little bit, but Roger, I mean, at this point, should be a household name in Hearthstone. He's been one of the most popular streamers on Twitch for 2 years. I think he is the most popular Taiwanese streamer. He's also had a slew of good results, at least early on in his career. 2015, 2016, had a bunch of top 4s, top 8s, top 16s at various tournaments throughout there. It was before we had the fully robust HCT system, where we had like the Buy Game House Cup. Yeah. There was some majors spread across the world, Dream Hacks, and he finished well at those. But since then, he's just kind of been streaming and qualifying for playoffs.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds like a great life.
Roger's definitely a player that I've paid a lot of attention to over the years, where, it's a very similar story to Staz, where it's a lot of strong, consistent success and lack of titles. Titles are what HCT professionals are chasing this entire time. They want the big wins. They would take washouts for wins in a lot of cases. But you can't just brush aside the fact that somebody has a string of top 8s for the last 4 years of their competitive play. That's just the mark of someone who's very strong. I'm saying it. I'm certain I'm going to say it until even I'm tired of it at some point. But it's a big thing to look at. Roger here, very aggressive on the opener.
I'll never tell.
And tries to push damage to get through this, but you stare down at this and wonder, is this enough to get through? Staz picks up Deathstalker Rexar. That could all change, but for now it looks like Roger's okay just chipping away with this hero power.
He's got another Candle Shot. He's doing 3 damage a turn. He knows these secrets are not explosive or wandering monster. He can just keep attacking face.
Staz has got to draw Rexar.
Yeah. Does this change the clock at all if he would put Grizzlies instead of hero powers?
So it'd be hero power down to 4.
No, it wouldn't change the clock.
Turns.
Yeah. So it'd be 2 more turns regardless.
Now, the one exception to that might be some sort of taunt, but that's pretty much relegated to Animal Companion or Wandering Monster in Staz's case.
Yeah, and this way he may even be able to have his Terror Scale Stalker either absorb more damage on the board to be able to attack the following turn, which wouldn't let him because he'd be dead. But.
Yeah, not only that, but just the Witchwood Grizzly here, just stifling so much of the potential of a counter assault at all.
Yeah. It's not often that this Death Rattle Hunter deck has this fast of a start where they can have their opponent at 6 health at turn 6.
That's what Keleseth does sometimes.
Yeah, and also just what Hunter does sometimes.
That's true.
And Staz is just relegated to playing another Spellstone, not protecting his life total at all.
Now, the spot where it could change on the clock is if Staz is able to get that taunt. The fact that he forward that 2 damage means that if Staz has Cracked the Razor Ball here to give taunt, he's not dead next turn. That's a very important facet.
Yeah. But with a Spider Bomb on board, he either has to kill it or it just gets through his taunt anyway and he dies. And then it trades 2 for 1, and Roger's still at 30, and he's dead in 2 turns anyway to the hero power unless he picks up Death Darker.
There's no taunt there, so that's going to pretty much wrap it up. If that was taunt, the freezing trap would have been able to shut down the spider bomb attack.
What's that thing in the middle?
Of what?
The living spores. What's the thing on top? The actual creature.
Some sort of dinosaur. I don't know. Fungosaurus.
Oh, okay.
Because it's got living spores on its back.
Because that one's like a T-Rex. That one's like a crocodile thing. It's like a turtle bird.
I wonder.
Yeah, Turtle Birdosaurus. Everyone knows that one.
So Stad's going to try and bluff the Wandering Monster, but it's not going to work because there's 2 attacks.
It also didn't attack the spider bomb in this case to deter the Wandering Monster.
So it would have
bluff.
to be a Wandering Monster that, it would have to be like
There's no Wandering Monster that gains health, is there?
a Wandering Monster that has taunt with more than 3 health.
There's a lifesteal one. The T4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The one that flips in your hand.
Yep.
The Pumpkin Eater.
Yeah.
Pumpkinhead.
Derek Brown,
Yeah.
as Frodan had called him last week.
The Pumpkin Peasant.
Derek Jeter Pumpkin Eater, yeah.
One of those. But we're going to game number 5 after everything's said and done. Staz had a 2-0 lead, but as we've seen, I'm sure I'm going to say this 10 more times as the broadcast goes on, Secret Hunter struggling.
Yep. That's, to me, just not unusual. Like, I don't think the deck is really that strong, and especially if you saw aggressive decks perform so well the previous week. That's the weakness of the Secret Hunter, is other good aggressive decks.
It's so weird, though, because last week, when it was less represented in the Europe playoffs, it had more success. And the field was, like, tougher for it. It's that I think they might have just got a little bit debated.
You're right.
They saw Moyen qualify, and they said, this deck's got to be the real deal.
It's a good deck.
They saw players hitting high legend with the deck, and they said, this deck's got to be the real deal.
It's a good deck. But does it make the cut when everyone's playing aggressive decks?
Well, this is the weakness for Roger. This is the big one.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that this deck does do is consistently push early game damage. Whether it's Secret Keeper, whether it's Dire Maul, whether it's Crackling Racer Maul, or a combination of the 3 of it.
Just weapons and hero power.
Yeah. I mean, Death Rattle Hunter, a lot of times the strategy against this deck is just to hero power every turn and hope you get there. Because the deck doesn't have early aggression. This deck can just do that hero power thing, plus have early game minions to attack. And Quest Rogue does take a little bit of time to get going, even if it has near perfect draws. It's still not going to complete the quest as fast as it used to. And Roger does have a decent draw because he's got Sonya.
Yeah, I wanted to elaborate a little bit on the hero power strategy that you were talking about with the Death Rattle one. You just keep hero powering. One of the reasons you do that is because so many rogues are reliant on completing quest via Sonya. If you don't play minions, they can't actually use Sonya to make a bunch of copies of the same minion and then complete the quest.
Yeah.
So hero powering turn after turn becomes a viable idea against them. Yeah, so it's quite wacky, but the fact that I've seen it work, I was like, this isn't gonna work. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And then it worked, and I was like, wow, that is actually strangely effective.
It is. And then you finish the game with King Crush.
I don't know how or why, but it works. It also works to just play stuff and start hitting them with it. Sometimes Rogue just doesn't defend themselves against minions that well. Quest Rogue, that is. Gotta play so many guessing games with the traps. Roger, with Sonya and South Sea Deck had clearly eyes set on completing with that one, but Staz is about to greatly limit his time with a Spellstone here, I think.
Yep. 3 wolves, all with Rush. I believe it's 3 wolves. Yep. Emerald Spellstone, not greater, not lesser.
Just Emerald Spellstone.
Just good old medium bowl of porridge.
This spell is called Wolves. It summons threatening wolves. Very threatening wolves. just wolves.
And Roger's at 14. And while he's got a way to complete the quest, outside of Vanish, he has no way to kill off this board. Ooh. If he vanishes, he's just... All right, can he get there? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a really interesting card to draw here. Roger gets a little information on the secret as well.
No, but he's using coin just to get the extra Chelsea deckhand. With Sonya in hand, is that necessary, or do you think he should hold the coin to Valier? I don't know. That's a tough one.
I'm not going to call myself a Quest Rogue expert by any means, but honestly, few people in the world seem to be Quest Rogue experts. It's a very difficult deck to pilot at 100% efficiency.
This is like the third time this game that he's just played Houndmaster Shaw plus Bear Shark.
Yeah, it just seems like that using the Vanish, well, it does have some payoffs. Like if you draw a second Southsea deckhand, it is looking pretty decent. The one you wanted. It's extra damage. That stuff's hard.
Well, you can kill 2 more of them. 3 more of them, actually, with the dagger hit.
Don't know if you're free to necessarily use the dagger.
Yeah, because you need to be able to complete the quest next turn and hopefully charge with more minions or play more minions.
So the question is how relevant the damage is. My instinct tells me it's not super relevant to clear off that extra 1/1, but it is going to be super relevant to be able to kill Houndmaster Shaw or whatever else Staz plays next turn.
Yeah.
So if I'm in Roger's spot, I think I like holding here and really trying to defend to get to Valier the Hollow. Because if Roger can get to Valier the Hollow and find a lifesteal minion, that's where I think the game's in the bag.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff that he has to do, though.
So a Huffer here actually puts Roger on a 2-turn clock. Finds it.
Wow.
And now that Valier being 1 turn off is going to be a big deal because just hero power is going to be able to kill him. Well, not quite. 3-turn clock, so he's going to have 1 turn. But then he also has to remove these minions and play quest.
And second Vanish won't help because that's a Huffer. Huffer has charge.
There's prep, but he needs to...
Doesn't have stuff, I don't think. Prep quest, it leaves you with...
He needs
6 mana.
To draw 2... Vicious Scale Hides?
That's what I was thinking. Could it be Wax Elementals? Could Wax Elementals do it? Oh, one's gone.
1 Wax Elemental is gone.
No, he can't draw 2 Vicious Scale Hides. He needs the... He doesn't have the mana
he
for
needs
it.
1... Well, he just needs 1. Even then, it wouldn't be able to survive because there would still be 7 damage on board. He'd be at 8 plus the hero power.
Doesn't have the mana to get this done.
He's dead? Wax Elemental plus a Charger? If he draws 1 Wax Elemental from Elven Minstrel and then Southsea deckhands into the Huffer.
Choose soon.
No, because there's still 3. Oh yeah, that would do it actually. At least for a turn, but then he'd be dead the following turn because the hero power would clock him.
Well, he'd have the Valier on the following turn, but doesn't find the Wax Elemental that was necessary. But you are right about that. Wax Elemental plus the Southsea deckhand, that does save him in that instance.
It would have given him an extra turn, and Valier could have helped him swing the game.
Attacks one of the big minions with charge, use the dagger to poke away the 1/1.
He wouldn't... Oh yeah, the 1/1 to set him to 3, so he'd have 1 less attack.
And so the Divine Shield and the Wax Elemental would both get attacked by the 2 minions on board, but Houndmaster Shaw is there.
Yeah.
So that would likely take care of it because the rush minion from hand.
But unfortunately doesn't find it. So Staz takes the series, and now... looks like we are done with round number 3, so we can take a look at the leaderboards after 3 rounds of play. I believe Staz is going to be up there with 3-0. Also, Alpi, who we saw earlier. Rivius, Sottle's pick. He's back.
And Tom.
Continuing, well, not continuing. Continuing his domination from the World Championship, but not from Summer Playoffs, where he dropped 0-3.
Hunter Ace had a very similar fate in his 2 playoff appearances so far this year. He went 0-4 in the first playoff for winter.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, for summer, and then went 6-0 on day 1 in Falls playoffs last week. Tom had a 0-3 exit at last playoffs. Now he's 3-0, following the same footsteps.
And also, something that I wanted to point out, harking back to the prediction segment earlier on in the day, Sottle's picks combined right now are 6-0. And
You're a genius.
Yeah,
We get it.
super smart. I'm Sottle. My tie's well tied. I look great. My hair's nice, and I'm smart at predicting.
That is an excellent impersonation.
Jeez,
The finest I've ever seen.
what a guy. But his pick will be tested. I believe the first match for round number 4 we're going to be seeing is Sequinox versus Tom 60229. So that's going to be a good one. But we're done here with me and Admirable. Round number 3 is over. Let's go to round number 4.
As we continue, we'll be covering all the action from the Asia-Pacific region. With countries lighting hearths for the second event of the HCT fall season, our star-studded field will compete until only the most worthy remain. At stake, a trip to Los Angeles and a spot at the Fall Championship. Pull up a chair by the fire, my friends. This is the HCT Asia-Pacific Fall Playoffs.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Hearthstone Championship Tour's next stop in Seoul, South Korea.
Teams in Hearthstone are more important than ever, even in an individual game like Hearthstone.
Muzzy, Amnesiac, and I are on the same team. Muzzy crushes North America. He's been the point leader for 2 years in a row already. He's not going to get third year in a row without a fight.
We've got round number 4 for you guys coming right up. No more messing around. And as TJ and Admirable mentioned, it's going to be Sequinox versus Tom 60229. And I feel like at the moment, at least, this is where one of your picks is going to be truly tested, as Tom is just one of the best in this region. You can't really argue with that one too much. But both players are 3-0, so it's going to be a huge stride for whoever wins this as well. Because the second you edge towards 4-0, you were looking very good to be getting into that top cut.
You are indeed, but this is where Sequinox not only comes up for a big test just in terms of the quality of player, but also his lineup now does have to answer some questions, because this is the aggro lineup that Sequinox has to be a little bit scared of. I mentioned earlier, he has Quest Rogue in there. It's a little bit unusual with the other decks that he's playing, but he feels, and I tend to agree with him, that he can get Quest Rogue through most aggressive lineups. Those being aggro lineups that feature like Token Druid and an Odd Paladin. It's very easy to sneak a win with Quest Rogue there, even though you're unfavored. Aggro lineups where there's an aggro mage in that slot where the Odd Paladin might be, that's going to be a lot tougher for Sequinox to pick up a win with that Quest Rogue.
Yeah, and as we kick off game number 1 here between Sequinox and Tom, it's very interesting to me, if you just recall all the way back to the pre-show, we talked about mage dropping off, right? It was like a tiny percentage represented, yet Tom, one of the most successful players in the whole region, has brought it and now had it banned. What do you make of that? Like, is that just because it's Sequinox's sort of strange lineup, or do you think Tom's mage has been drawn some bans a little bit earlier as well?
I was actually tempted to go aggro lineup with aggro mage again this week. After, I picked it last week, it seemed strong then, and looking at the field this time around, I thought it might do reasonably well again. The big sticking point with that is where you come down on this debate of exactly how good or bad aggro mage is in the other aggro matchups, right? It's something that I know APX Void, who is one of the most well-known tempo mage players, has been very kind of vociferously insisting that it's just fine in a lot of those aggro matchups that most people think that it really suffers in. And I guess Tom is a believer as well.
Yeah, it seems to be making it work so far at 3-0, but so is Sequinox. But let's take a look at this matchup. It is going to be the Token Druid from Sequinox, and then Tom with the Zoo.
Yeah, Tom got off to a rocket start there as well with the Happy Ghoul draw early on. Turn 2, generating an enormous amount of power. Sequinox just had the ability to fight back against wave number 1, but hey, we use, as Hearthstone casters, the term "he drew the nuts" quite liberally. but Happy Ghoul's start into Keleseth Kobold Librarian on 3 is about as close as it gets without just the second Happy Ghoul involved in the opening salvo.
Yeah, and as you were summing up the turns leading up to that before the Keleseth was drawn, one of my, continuing the conversation would have been, yeah, it's even great he's had a strong start. Andy has the gas with Librarian.
Yeah.
Well, Andy has the gas with Librarian, and the thing he's drawing's buffed, which is even better, so huge turn for Tom. And now, can Sequinox even realistically do something here? He can do one or the other, or he can swipe, but swipe doesn't really get the job done, does it?
It's not bad going into the Giggling Inventor turn, though, because you take 2 bodies off the board here, and then, Giggling Inventor, the magic number is 4, right? Like, 4 attacks get gobbled up by Giggling Inventor before they're allowed to attack with any initiative after that. So taking this board of 4 down to a board of 2 with the swipe does get a lot of work done going into that Giggling turn.
Yeah, I'm wondering how good Whispering Woods is, though, because it does a similar job of, doing the points of damage to set up for, say, swipe, for example.
Sure.
And also, you're not vulnerable to Dreadlord yet. There is only 1 card in Tom's hand, 2 on the draw, of course, but you cannot play a Dreadlord.
That's fair.
So with the tokens, just as good as they're ever going to be at this point, Sequinox is going to go for that swipe to set up the Giggling. Playing gigs on curve, of course, is strong. You do want to play it as soon as possible, but I feel like this Whispering Woods is just really getting worse as time goes on right now.
It does get better very quickly, though. I agree that, for the next 3 or 4 turns, maybe more, it's going to be quite dead with this line that Sequinox has taken. But it's the kind of card where if you do survive until, you get to cast an Ultimate Infestation, for example, it then immediately wins the game the turn after that when you're able to, load out the Whispering Woods Soul of the Forest board. So I get it, but I like the argument there because instead of the swipe Giggling Inventor curve that I was looking at, you're looking at more Whispering Woods into swipe, and you float a mana the turn afterwards, but your swipe is so much better with all those 1/1s.
And well, Giggling Inventor is still just good.
Yes.
Right? It's never a bad card to drop down against Sue, so you're always getting that value there.
Spreading Plague. Card that we have not yet mentioned in the matchup, and it's a pretty big deal. Zoo is probably the best aggro deck at dealing with Spreading Plague without, some tech cards thrown in. Obviously, if you're going to Mossy Horror or Void Ripper or whatever else that's Spreading Plague, then some magic can happen. But Zoo just has, the 3/3s and the 4/4s and the Fungal Mancers and everything that can kind of chew through the Spreading Plague and keep developing the board behind it. But of course, it's a big help.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at those. Not laughing in a bad way, but you just see the achievements from these players here. Both of them are anchors in their HCG teams, in their respective teams. Tom, first world champion for the APAC region. Anchor for his team for Global Games. Sequinox, anchor for his team for Global Games. It really is, Sequinox much less well known in the grand scale, but really it's just the battle of the titans at the moment from each of their respective mini regions, so to speak, within the Asia Pacific total region. It's a really cool matchup, actually. I feel like Sequinox is doing his best lately to bust out onto the scene one way or the other. Apparently, I'm sure the guys over in Poland will tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure they said he said he was the most handsome player in did he say Asia Pacific or did he say Singapore? I can't remember.
I wouldn't argue with either.
Yeah.
I'd probably have to fight you to the death with the surrender argument on the other side. Although, is surrender handsome or is he cute? Because there's a distinction there, right?
Yeah, I'd lean more towards cute.
Okay. Yeah. This is important content.
Yeah, okay, we've just had official confirmation that was indeed in his profile. I think his voting page for his HGG. Okay, so
again, the Whispering Woods has some merits here. He can actually go for a pretty competitive board this turn. He does end up going with the Spreading Plague, but he had the option to just Whispering Woods, Power of the Wild to buff, and basically just contest the whole board 1-for-1. Tom would still have a slight edge, but it would lead into a world where, if he wanted to trade, or if Sequinox got to make the trades on his terms the next turn, he would be setting up a Spreading Plague into a board of a bunch of 1-health minions, which is a really nice position to be in.
And still not weak to the Dreadlord, which is the point you always have to look out for Whispering Words. Yeah, because this is kind of the same thing, except Your Whispering Woods is ever so slightly worse. Now Whispering Woods is better, obviously.
Yeah, but now, because he hasn't really done anything to compete with the board, like using that Whispering Woods a little bit more aggressively, he's in a position where a Whispering Woods Soul of the Forest turn can potentially just leave him dead on board next turn if he's not able to answer some of this board state. Does have Branching Paths for armor, but again, that's just 0 initiative, no answer to the board.
What about Branching Paths for armor? Maybe you could draw 1, maybe, and then just power the wild for a 3/2. It might just be enough health plus mini board for Tom to trade it away. Because after seeing 1 swipe, he does have decent trades available to him.
I don't hate that play, but I think if you are going down that line, you do Branching for armor twice. Because
yeah, like I said, you could maybe draw
your
a card
complete plan is in your hand, right? If you were going to go with that line, your complete plan is just gain armor, then you just try and live for 2 turns so that you can Whispering Woods Soul of the Forest, and then you already have the Savage Roar, which then trades the board state out and wins the game with your remaining 2/2s. But we've both been kind of advocating at different points for this Whispering Woods to be played a little bit more aggressively, so I definitely can't hate on this too much.
This is my worry about playing it here, though, is that, well, now the Soul of the Forest sucks. Basically, you just regenerate a 2/2, which is very, very poor. And now the draw has to happen now, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, like, you could, there was a chance you could have done this the other way and actually got some security. But now, Equinox,
ouch.
Not what you're after, and his glance instantly to the side, just not anything in particular, but more an annoyance than anything else, shows that those strong shells are not really what he was looking for. Weird point is, what was he even looking for to draw this turn?
Something that just was not these cards that are in his hand.
But what?
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
Spellstones?
Right.
But even Spellstones don't do anything?
Spellstone off the first one, he can then armor up and take off the second. Saronite would have been fine. Swipe would have just found him another turn. Even like, I don't know, 13, 15, he's not quite dead on board, so even just like spread, like Branching Paths into a Wild Growth there and then UI the next turn, but that's so unlikely to keep him alive over the course of 2 turns. Almost impossible, actually. 4 mana 2/2.
Can't help but get overly caught up, which I know is a bad thing, but in playing that Whispering Woods ages ago. Like, on turn 4. Going into the Warlock turn 4 from Tom.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of opportunities. Turn 4 and turn 6, I believe, were the 2 opportunities to actually try and fight for board with it a little bit more aggressively. And he would, you know, be in a slightly more comfortable position here and have maybe, you know, 1 or 2 turns to then find that UI and actually be able to cast the UI without dying.
What I will say is playing it before the turn you can play it with Soul of the Forest. When you have Soul of the Forest in hand, feels bad.
Oh, it's a big call, yeah.
Yeah, it feels bad.
Right.
Sometimes you have to, but it's not fun when you do. And Tom has had, outside of that opening, I wouldn't say a mind-blowing Zoo hand. I think it's strong, but
I think it would be at the point where he's played Happy Ghoul on 2 and then Keleseth on 3 with a Cobalt Librarian. I just think, like, it would be disingenuous to say any cards you draw after that don't constitute a fantastic draw for Zoo. Because it just doesn't matter. They're all +1/+1, and they're all minions.
Apart from the ones that aren't.
But even they are minions. But he has, that's the point, he hasn't drawn any of those, right? He drew minion, and just killed him with it.
Yeah, and didn't particularly get punished for that either, as Tom takes the first win over Equinox there. I don't know. I think there were a couple of moments that could have changed his fate for game number 1, but that is only game number 1. There's plenty more games left, and I don't know. How do you feel that matchup goes overall, the Zoo versus Druid, in a nutshell?
It's tough. Like, the slower Druids, Zoo does beat them up quite effectively. Again, it can just keep pushing through Spreading Plague a lot of the time. And the slower druids have to kind of look at tech like Starfall, for example, to support their giggling inventors and their swipes and actually get more done on the board. The token druid is just a little bit stronger, you know, kind of ironically because it's able to make big pushes back onto the board at some key points, which is what Sequinox kind of seemed slightly adverse to doing in that matchup. So again, I think one of the big reasons why Token Druid is so popular in this tournament, and in the aggro lineups in particular, is that it does have that ability to just explode onto the board so quickly in aggro matchups. It can just make so many bodies that the aggro mirror matchups just can't contest, and then suddenly initiative and choice of attacks.
Yeah, it's just too many attacks, right?
Just goes over to the druid in that spot.
Yeah, well, that is just going to be game number 1 there. Tom is leading, and this is for the all-important 4-0 so far in the Swiss. So stay tuned, guys. We're going to finish up the series soon.
Well played!
In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the most memorable moments from the 2018 Hearthstone Championship Tour Summer Championship. So prepare to be impressed. We're going to jump right into a playoff match from the HCT Summer Championship between Viper and Nalguidan. The winner of this match is going to earn themselves a spot at the HCT World Championship. It's game 3, and we've got a Shutterwalk Shaman mirror match. The goal of Shutterwalk Shaman is to stall until you can kill your opponent with the combo of Shutterwalk, Serenite Chain Gang, Grumble World Shaker, and Life Drinker. The battle cry interactions between Serenite and Grumble allow you to add 1-cost copies of Shutterwalk to your hand, eventually killing your opponent with repeated Life Drinker battle cries. But the order that Shutterwalk repeats battle cries is random. That means that the combo can fizzle if Grumble triggers before Serenite Chain Gang, because there's not going to be a copy of Shutterwalk to return to the player's hand. So, to avoid that possibility, pilots must prepare before playing Shutterwalk by playing as many Serenite Chain Gang battle cries as possible. On Viper's turn 8, we see him go for it. He plays out his Shutterwalk to start the combo, but the Grumble triggers first and the combo fizzles. Did Viper just lose the match by pulling the trigger too early? Then, on Nalguidan's turn 12, we see his Shutterwalk do exactly the same thing. Look at the frustration on Nalguidan's face. Now, neither player has access to their Shutterwalk combo. It's going to be a true test of skill to navigate this unusual game state. Both pros realize that this match is going to come down to one of two scenarios. Either outvaluing the other player with Hagatha spells, or fatigue. But, get ready for this. Nalguidan has been preparing for fatigue the entire game. Not only has he been holding back his Manatide totems to avoid additional card draw, but, more importantly, before he played his Shutterwalk, he played Volcano to force Viper's Acolyte of Pain to draw 3 cards and push Viper closer to fatigue. These decisions gave Nalguidan an advantage in fatigue, and Nalguidan's going to claim the game and move up 2-1 in the series. This game is an incredible example of how small decisions, in this case, clearing with the Volcano, dictated the outcome of a pivotal game. Even the smallest choices matter for the pros. Both Nalguidan and Viper played some incredible Hearthstone. Congratulations to both for navigating this unusual game state and being part of one of the HCT Summer Championship's most memorable plays. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, brought to you by the coaches at GamerSensei, please visit playhearthstone.com/esports for more of the Well Played series and all things Hearthstone esports.
Well played!
World champion Tom 60229 takes the lead 1-0 over Sequinox. And Sequinox is Soul's pick, so I'm happy so far. But is he going to take the whole series? Is Tom going to be able to do it with his lineup the way it matches up against Sequinox's?
I think he's favored. I think that aggro mage having to draw out the ban from Sequinox because it's not the aggro lineup that he kind of insured himself against, and it's the aggro lineup that his quest rogue is the most vulnerable to. So getting rid of the aggro mage from Sequinox side still makes sense, but it's a necessity on his part, and it goes to show you that he's the one that's really up against it in terms of the matchups in the series.
Right, and it's going to be Druid again from Sequinox, and Tom shifting over to his odd rogue. I don't think there's anything too crazy in his list. It seems fairly standard.
No, he's playing Myra's, which is still not a given these days for some reason. Still find it baffling. Like, I can kind of see the argument. Myra's is one of those cards where you can like very much get baited into like, oh, I played it and then I won the game, and ignore all those times it just sat in your hand and it just wasn't a minion that you could have played the whole time.
Right now.
Exactly. But just the amount of power that's stacked into one card, and the fact that it's surprisingly effective even against more aggressive decks in matchups like that, like not just making sure you don't run out of gas against control mirrors, against control matchups, but being able to just flood resources against aggro decks is actually very important as well. Like, for me, it's core to the deck.
Yeah, pretty much sort of like the final nail in the coffin, right, for the aggro matchups, because you just have more options, which is very, very important. But speaking of minions, Henchclan Thug coming off the top there just in time. It's actually going to be pretty strong, which means Tommy's going to be able to pressure onto the board. Excuse me, and it's all about the Psychonauts can answer. He does have coin swipe to just say a pretty hard no, but that does slow him down quite significantly.
Big difference between ramp and no ramp here. Having to throw out this coin for the swipe means that he's kind of back on a wing and a prayer and dealing with the next minion, because Spellstone is not going to be good enough against a big minion. You distracted me with your giggle. What?
It's because if we look at the players Tom has beaten so far in this Switch, okay, cool. There's Zoki, and then who I can only presume is a bigger brother, Doki, the second evolution.
So we're just waiting for like Pocky, Nocky, and Rocky.
Yeah,
told.
It's like he's taking down the 7 dwarfs or something here. There aren't enough rounds of Swiss.
This is really cute from Tom, by the way. He preemptively cold-blooded his Blood Knight, recognizing that there wasn't enough armor to have been gained from a Spellstone to be able to kill its legion. And a swipe was already used with the coin on the previous turn, which means that he's likely to have, Psychonauts is likely to have to hero power it to take it down, even if he has Spellstone in hand. So that Cold Blood just kind of gets its damage done just by being played on curve, which is actually kind of a really key play. Just also understanding that he's fully allocating his mana next turn because he has Giggling Inventor in hand and 5 mana available.
So what do you think about, he got the damage in, which is what you want from Cold Blood. If it hits face once, worth done.
Sure.
But what do you think about it being used on the Blood Knight? Was it used just as a case of, well, okay, I'm not going to wait for Blood Knight to go off against his potential Annoytrons?
Wait, you're asking about playing the Blood Knight versus not playing the Blood Knight? Yeah.
There's nothing else to play,
He had no
right?
other play.
Right.
Yeah, he had a handful of 5-drops. He's not just going to pass the turn against the deck that he needs to be aggressive against.
Okay.
Just let them develop.
Is it actually better to trade the 2-1 in first here, if you're going to Fungalmancer? And hit the 2 Annoytrons?
Mushroom power!
Why?
Just because of a spreading plague. You just leave more minions alive on the board. Because he can trade off his board now, right? And then just get 4 spreading plague. It's not the best spreading plague in the world, don't get me wrong, but I just wonder how valuable in Odd Rogue an extra minion is versus just having the stats anyway.
Sure. This is a nice looking Power of the Wild turn, though. Curves him into Malfurion from there, and then he's really not far from that big Infestation turn.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here. This is not a confirmed stat. This is a Raven stat, so often wrong. But I feel like Malfurion, its win rate versus Odd Rogue when played on 7 is probably close to like, what, 90% or something?
Wow, okay.
I think, well, if you play it...
I was with you. I was like, this is a smart point. I agree with all of this. And then you just had to just highball the...
It would be weird if I didn't, right? Yeah. All I mean is, I feel like it's that powerful. 90% really probably an exaggeration. Yeah. But 2 1/5 taunts, 5 armor, and a hero power that negates most of the damage that rogues can do on top of those taunts. It's insane. It's the card I want against Odd Rogue. If I'm good. Yep. And any other class, actually, I'd take it.
He's just been like starved of dagger this whole game. Hasn't found the time to press the button that's the entire point of the deck up until this point. He's just been playing minions and floating mana because none of his minions add up to the right numbers because they're all odd.
So all the right numbers are even?
Yes.
Okay. Learning mathematical... I was going to say mathematical things, and I just feel like I'm just failing at words right now.
Yeah.
Learning mathematics.
Forget the maths, learn English first, and then we'll work on it.
It's because I've been out here for so long.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, well, Psychonauts is deep in thought now, as he has Nourish available to him, and he has double UI. So there's enough health to probably survive. My worry is a UI play, or a play to get to UI next turn, too linear?
It might be. I think he has plenty of stuff to do in his hand to fill turn 7, 8, 9, but I don't think he necessarily needs
Right, that's my point, right? He could just make good plays instead and get there, because if he nourishes, he almost commits to playing UI, because it's the whole point of the setup. Yet he's took tons of damage, and for all he knows, there's another Cold Blood coming his way to face. So I do like this. I find it hard not to play Malfurion.
Yeah, this curve just makes sense because you can Mouth this turn, and then next turn you can just Nourish into Giggling Inventor, right?
Yeah.
And then you just Ultimate Infestation the turn after that. So I don't think there was any great rush for Sequinox to skip a turn that involved playing Malfurion, right? Like
exactly.
Just doesn't make any sense.
And look, he's just safe. And now, there's Myra's Unstable Element. A bit of a sigh and a breath from Sequinox, because now the game becomes very straightforward. I love that animation, by the way.
It's really
yeah, because it just didn't even need to be, right? It could have just been the Dex Empty animation. But anyway, now Sequinox has a very straightforward job. He needs to beat those 10 cards. Once he's done that, it's just a game over. Kind of weird, like, it's just not a scenario that often has come up in Hearthstone before.
It's much more interesting this way as well than, like, because the other scenario you see this is in, like, heavy control mirrors when it's come down to fatigue, right? And both of you are out of cards, and you both have 8 or 9 cards left in hand. It's like, right, how do I beat these 9 cards? Well, in control mirrors, it's kind of interesting, but also in a way kind of boring because you know exactly what all of those cards are, so it's solvable. This isn't. This is Sequinox having to play against like an average collection of 10 cards from what was remaining in Tom's deck, and that is so much more difficult, so much more complex, and then to me, so much more interesting.
And we saw in, I think it was the series Dan and Kibler were casting, where the Myras was for the double Cold Blood for the win.
Yes.
And like, well, that's also things you have to consider. If Myras can get you just a straight up lethal out, it's really cool to play around, actually. But now Malfurion just doing the work, taking down the Vile Spine, and as you said, Sequinox just has the UI available. Didn't go for the Giggling.
Yeah, Hero Power, the 3/3, instead of playing his Giggling Inventor. Which I can only imagine comes down to the threat of second Blood Knight coming out from Tom 60229. That one was played on curve early on, but there is still a second one that could have been picked up out of the deck there.
This hurts, though. Especially because that Hench Clan isn't going to die to UI now. Neither is that 7/3. So, does now Annoyed Giggling Inventor and like Branching Paths have to be the play?
This just goes back to exactly what we were talking about previously, right? Like, Sequinox kind of picked a card in Blood Knight and decided that he just didn't want to get absolutely wrecked by that one card. But because he chose to select that one card, he just suffered to so many different combinations, right? Like, there's various big boards that Tom could have made here involving pushing damage with a Cold Blood that then UI was going to be uncastable because there's just too much damage coming back again the other way. That's why that turn, I was trying to sell it as just being so difficult from Sequinox's side, because how are you supposed to know which combination of 10 cards you're supposed to play around?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think I would have tried to do it was risk versus reward, right? Reward, but if there's no Blood Knight, that is horrible to get through as Rogue. Is that the best play you can make as a reward factor? The risk, well, they still have to attack into 2 taunts, and there's a 2/1 on the board after that. So maybe it was just good enough once you add all those things together. But now the hits go through. There is no Blood Knight, of course, we can see that, but there is a pretty Hench Clan Thug here, and the 7/3 hard to describe. But look at this now, it's just usage of resources, all these tools, because he's drawn his deck, has opened Tom up to be able to push so much damage here.
Now UI takes Sequinox up to 16. There's 12, 14 on board, plus a Leroy in hand. So yet again, Ultimate Infestation is uncastable. He can, Branching Pass twice to go up to 23 and take 2 off the board. So it'd be 14, 20, 22. Does that keep him alive? I think it does, right?
Well, so he goes up to...
Branchi pass for armor twice, he goes to 23. He hero powers the 3/3, so that's just taking the 3 anyway, and he takes the 2 off the board. So 23, 14 on board, 20, 22.
No, he's dead, right? If you say he goes up to 23 and then he hits
oh,
the
yeah,
3
he's dead, he's dead exactly.
Yeah, because he hits the 3
he's dead exactly to the Henge Clan growing 1/1. Yeah, you're right. Which all comes down to a simple solution. He dead.
I thought you were going to say, Giggling Inventor with Nourish.
is not
What's funny is, if Sequinox could get over this hurdle, we can see in the hand now, it's nothing.
Yeah.
There's Baku, who cares, it's one singular minion. You could mess with the fact that it's one minion pretty easily as Druid. And then 2 1-drops, 3 1-drops, sorry, 4 minus. And then Leroy, that's such a low impact turn, but Fatigue's gonna hit him, but I don't think he cares because Leroy Jenkins, Sequinox gives it a quick nod, but that's gonna be game 2 going to the world champ. Is he gonna make this a Swift 3-0? Make it in Swiss, a Swift 4-0 as well. I feel like I shouldn't, but I often do. Those players' deck lists I went to check out for this tournament. I can't really explain why, he just wasn't. But it is scary how consistently just good he's been for years. And he still is. It's kind of crazy. Like, I feel like people somehow still just sleep on him even though he's world champion, and just, or at least I know I do sometimes. And it's just weird. It's like, he's just good. Just all the time. Yeah, he had a bad playoffs last time, but you can't be good in every single tournament. Hunter Race proves that. But when you're good all the other times, it's actually just insane to me.
Yeah, I remember.
It's so nuts.
I remember playing against Tom in qualifiers in like 2015, and he was just my demon. When I saw his name in a bracket, I just couldn't beat him. He ended up qualifying for back-to-back Gfinity events, I believe, where in both of those qualifiers he knocked me out in the way to getting there.
Right.
Whereas I'd qualified for the first ones, and potentially if I'd have got through Tom, that could have been me qualifying for multiples. But
then you would be world champion right now.
Exactly. No, but I just run into Tom and I'd just be in my own head. I just can't beat this guy. He just always seems to have the edge on me. He just seemed to build great decks back then. He always seemed to make like plays that when I saw them, they would confuse me ever so slightly, but then 2 turns later, I'd understand exactly why he did what he did. But exactly, that's too late. He's already outplayed me by that point. So yeah, he's always a player that I've had a great deal of respect for, and was delighted to see him get the recognition that he needed to be the world champion.
Yeah, and a huge hero now in his home country. It's pretty incredible. But I just wonder because we suffer from just not having constant exposure to the Asia Pacific scene, for example, similar to the Chinese scene. But I wonder, if Tom made a move to Europe a couple of years ago, if he moved to America, he would just be dominating and would be clearly deemed across the world as the #1 player, I would say, after this kind of length of performance from him. But let's see if he can do it.
Yep. And now here is where things do start to get a little bit interesting because, again, I mentioned this in the pre-show, but I kind of liked Sequinox's lineup but didn't understand 1 or 2 things about him. So I DM'd him on Twitter and asked him to explain some of the choices, like bringing Quest Rogue, for example, and some of the tech options. And he said that, in a nutshell, this is a target token druid lineup. It's just that he didn't want to go all in on that strategy and thought that Quest Rogue was just a fine enough deck that it would be able to find a win through some of these aggro strategies that would beat him. And it was just such a strong deck to have against other strategies that he might run into. So yes, Tom is 2-0 up, but the deck that Sequinox most had in mind when building this lineup is still the one that Tom has to win.
And a really good shout from Sequinox. We talked a lot about Tom then, but making that call, and then we saw this morning as we checked out in the pre-show the ups and downs of class representation and deck representation.
Yeah.
Token Druid up, all of the Druids way down. It's like, wow, that is a very, very good meta call for this tournament, but let's see if it pays off. Tom playing the Violet Teacher version of the list as well, so Tom keeping it a bit more old school, I'll say. Not been impressed with the new Token Druid list. Reminds me very much of Pavel as well. Pavel never used to play the new lists. He was like, well, I won this tournament 2 months ago with these lists. I'm just going to play them again and win, and then he does, and you're like, what? It's crazy.
This is a lot of power that's coming in play with these Mountain Giants, but Sequinox is a little bit just behind the curve in terms of dealing with these tokens spreading out. Hasn't found a Defile just yet. Hellfire, not what you lining up against 5 health minions at Design Shields, but at least he can stop the bleeding with the Sun Fury Protector. This is essentially a play from Sequinox that says, you know what, yeah, okay, you win. I can't deal with the board you're making, but I'm going to make you deal with mine. Some finger counting going on from
I'm just wondering,
colleague.
I was just working out whether branching paths double attack is better than branching paths attack once, but then armor, because you get one, you gain the armor, but also the spell stone is playable. I think just branching paths double attack looks pretty good here.
Throws out the coin first to get the extra token.
Yeah? You could have coin double swipe available though. Unless he's just going for a completely different play.
Wait, what? Coining double swipe with 6 men?
No, next turn.
Oh,
I'm saying if he, because he uses it now, he could have saved it and had coin double swipe. Yeah, just get more tokens on the board, play the spellstone anyway. This is like maximum output damage you could have done this turn, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah, and the hero power does end up being important here, right? Like, he does actually end up with full mana to utilization from the coin, so I guess it does make sense. It's just when you look at the board state he's left with, he's basically like gassed himself out already and left a board that dies to Dread Infernal, Hellfire, and Defile.
Yeah, and I will say that one positive for Tom is that this Nourish is probably just going to be for draw this game, and I think that's what might have pushed him over the edge to make this play.
Sure.
He's like, well, okay, say Defile comes down, well, the 4 mana turn isn't going to be that crazy from Sequinox pressure-wise. And then, okay, he has a slow turn, I'll make my slow turn, draw 3 cards, 4 on the draw, of course, and then refill that way, and I think that's what he's going to go for. Is he ramping? Oh, God.
Drew.
For a second I thought he went ramp. I was like, wow, Tom's just going to draw UI? Like, he just is. It's his trademark card after the keeping the World Championships.
Yeah, exactly. We keep UI, we draw UI off the top. We ramp to 10 without UI in hand. This is just how we play Hearthstone.
Just wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, this refill's looking not bad, actually. A lot of value there, Malfurion, the Whispering Woods as well, and Giggling Inventor. And also as well, I think, seeing the Hellfire, are you gaining any form of read that there's no Defile?
Not necessarily, no.
So Defile you think is more valuable later?
Defile is an insane card in this matchup because of Whispering Woods, Soul of the Forest. If you have 1 minion in play, that's a full clear with Defile.
Time waits for no one.
You would rather throw away a Hellfire in that spot than a Defile if you have both options.
Just it looks unintuitive.
Right, especially since it was the 5 mana turn, right? So you couldn't Defile 4. On turn 6, it's a much heavier debate because you could use Defile to fully get control of the board again with a 4-drop, whereas you couldn't do that with Defile. But on 5, I think you'd always Hellfire even if Defile was in your hand.
Okay, so let's see what the development onto the board is going to be for Sequinox here. He has a few options. Is it weird that Tom hit face then? Does it matter too much?
On a 7 mana turn, no, I don't think it matters. I think taking the damage is just 1 free damage. You know, it doesn't really change anything.
I don't normally quibble too much over this. I normally just go face anyway, because it's just the way I play. But like, hitting them for 1 directly to 15, sometimes you have to stop and think about it a little bit and be like, I've literally put them to 50. They don't even have to tap this turn.
But if that wasn't clear to anyone at home, like if your opponent's on an odd-numbered turn, they are going to life tap. There is no way for an
unless they're dead on board.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way for an even lock to spend an odd amount of mana without pressing hero power. So if they're at 16, they're going to be at 14. So the hero power to the face is actually just free damage.
I do like the spiders here. You've seen a Hellfire. That's 1 removal gone. And the taunts don't really do much with this hand, especially. You don't have any damage buffs from hand, so it's not like you can get a cheeky lethal from, you know, just a random double Savage Roar branching or something with off just 2/1
Does pick up the Defile now, so he has a bit of security. All his job is now really is just to keep hold of the board, and then he's able to answer that first big Soul of the Forest play with that Defile in hand, as I said, as long as he has 1 minion available.
I wondered.
Your magic shall not save you.
Well, I was looking at the silence thinking, fine, it's one of the better silence targets, but I was also wondering, like, how quickly do you start using these heal cards? Because now that the control is there, from Sequinox is has the board control. All he needs to do is just not die, and then he wins. Because there was just a moment looking at this hand. Swipe, swipe face, UI face. Let's see if you've got heal. It's a very valid tactic considering there's no buffs in hand for Tom at the moment.
It's not the worst plan I've ever heard, honestly.
That's not a surprise, Catcher for you. I come up with some pretty bad plans. Oh,
value!
The count.
Black Knight value.
Blood Knight, who cares? Mossy Horror, who cares?
Yeah,
Black Knight, that Annoyatron.
Wrong knight, idiot.
I'd love it if there was just like a horror in a Mossy Horror in hand, and he's still just Black Knight. It's a 1-2, just to be like, yes, take this.
It's kind of awkward. Again, being a 9-mana turn. I think, Black Knighting the Annoyatron, all jokes aside, is something that Sequinox would be relatively happy to do. It's just the fact that he doesn't really get to do anything else alongside that that's slightly awkward.
I think Spellstone in the Violet Teacher seems like a relatively high priority here.
None.
It's going to deal with it this way, sure. I can see that.
Wow, that 4/10 taunt actually is gets an extra minion, gets an extra taunt on the board. I don't know about you, Sol, but to me, Sequinox looks like he's cleaning this one up pretty quickly. Although... Hey.
Sequinox immediately.
It's like, right, to bat, 1, 2.
Yeah.
I mean, he has Shadow Flame, right? So whichever way you look at it, it can't be too bad.
Yeah, he has all
because he can tap the 4/2 into one of these, then Shadow Flame, even the 7/1, and then Defile, and he goes off. Or just do this and save Defile, why not?
Yeah, it's trade honestly, which there's really not a whole lot wrong with it in that position. You've got such great control of the board, you maintain 10 points of taunt still in play. Makes a lot of sense to me.
Kind of surprised he didn't just play a Shroom Brewer there to heal at one of the taunts. Again, talking over tiny points here, but did he remove a Spellstone with that? One was played, definitely.
I think he took care of one. Sounds right. And then all of a sudden, Solid Forest board number 2 comes down, and Sequinox, having preserved that Defile, is just in a perfectly happy spot to deal with this as well.
Wow, Defile number 2. Cast them both.
There it goes. That's a very simple matchup. Honestly, you draw your Defiles, you wait for the right time to use them, and Token Druid just kind of goes home and cries, and now I'm sure we will be seeing some of these Shroom Brewers come out into play just to secure this final board position.
Yeah, we saw there Sequinox just not really taking any risks that whole game, right? It's more of something has to go wrong for me to lose, as opposed to something has to go, or I have to make something go right.
Whoa. There's 16 on board right now. Sequinox just used both of his heals on the minion there. You talked several turns ago about the swipe to face setup, but then just try and UI him in the face. That, again, was a very realistic prospect. We can see, obviously, it wouldn't have worked. Sequinox would have just spellstoned his own minions to heal. But it's a potential out that Tom could have looked at and tried at least to find a win for himself.
Yeah, I think he thinks he might still have a go.
Has become our greatest
he really needs to get that much damage through his Spellstone now, and you've got to think with 9 cards left, your opponent's got 1 Spellstone, like even worst case.
Sequinox trying to decide exactly how much time he has here. Can he just keep trading forever? Does he win with inevitability if he just kills every minion? Or is it worth him just setting up some kind of lethal situation for himself?
It's very scary versus this Druid, though. If you leave a minion on the board, things could get out of hand pretty quick.
Yeah. Through a 4-9 taunt, though.
Yes.
Almost out of time.
Okay. So Whispering Woods, Power of the Wild, and then Armor.
Yep.
We can see that the nice weird combo of a Dread Infernal Defile gets the job done anyway. But this is the best push I think it's going to take. Because again, this is a board with double Savage Roar and a swipe that you just murder them. It doesn't matter what health.
Right.
You just go.
Oh, that Spellbreaker makes things interesting as well. You now have several ways to clear up this board if you want to. I don't know how much damage that Spellstone's at, but you can use that as well in various combinations.
Don't you just want to Dread Infernal Defile?
I think you do, yeah.
Because
it's just kind of interesting to me that basically any card in your hand right now plus Defile does clear this board.
Yeah, but the other cards claim more of your own board than some of the others, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this, you loses the Geist, but only loses the Geist. You can play the Spellbreaker, then that suddenly causes an issue because then he wipes, I think, almost all of his board.
Yes.
Except the Dread Infernal.
Yeah.
Looks to me like this is the time you throw in the towel. That Twilight getting the work done. Like, swipe, swipe, hero power is 11. He's only on 13. Does swipe, swipe keep him alive? Not through Bone Mare, but...
So I'm going to go fishing first, though.
I think there's Plague left.
You
but
I can rest.
It wasn't there, and Sequinox takes the win. But that was, I would say, his best matchup he has versus the Token Druid, would you say?
Yeah, he has a few pretty decent matchups against the Token Druid. Of course, one of them was banned out, which is that Control Priest that he's brought specifically. So now he has the mirror match, but he has the slightly more modern version of Token Druid with the extra minions, the Saronite Chain Gangs, and the Strong Shell Scavengers.
Yep.
And then Quest Rogue, which is, you know, you can go back and forth debating that matchup, but it's not as miserable a matchup for Quest Rogue as some of the other true aggro decks are, because remember, we look at lineups that have Token Druid in it and we call them the aggro lineup. Token Druid isn't really an aggro deck in any world.
Deck.
Yeah, like Even Lock is more of an aggro deck than Token Druid is. It plays an enormous thing on turn 3 and then smacks you with it. That's like Token Druid doesn't do that. It just combos on turn 8.
It plays nothing on 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 most of the time as well. But Sequinox is fighting back. But is Tom just going to take it regardless? Find out after the break.
With the casters!
So my favorite new legendary is Darius Crowley. I've always loved all archetypes of warrior. Pirate warrior, yes, I know, it's pirate warrior, but I loved it.
I think if people want a lot of fun with decks or a lot more options, Azlian's Soul Thief is actually absolutely amazing to play. It's a 7-mana 3/3 that when you play it, it removes your hand and you gain whatever your opponent's hand is. So I mean, I've been playing Hunter recently, where when I run out of cards, I just play that, and suddenly I've got, you know, a handful of all these other cards that I shouldn't really be allowed to play with, and it kind of throws your opponent off quite a lot because they know what you've got, but they don't know when you're going to play it, and they don't know how you're going to use them combined with the rest of your deck as well. So that's definitely a fun one to craft.
The must-have legendaries in the set are definitely Baku and Gen. They're the first port of call if you're crafting cards, just because they single-handedly open up, you know, deck archetypes for every single class that you can mess around with, and that's super interesting. You get a lot of longevity out of them. My personal favorite legendary isn't really part of the new expansion, but I guess in terms of like a common card that enables it, I think Witching Hour is amazing, and you know, the combination of that, if you already own Hadronox, it's a must-have because that deck is a ton of fun to play.
I always forget the name of it. It's the warrior legendary, and it's like a gunspire. It can't attack. It's like a 7 mana 3/8 that can't attack, but whenever it gets damaged, it launches a 3 damage cannon to one of your opponent's side of the board, whether it's them or one of their minions. I think that card is so cool, and I'm just trying my hardest to build a combo deck with it. But that's why I love beating people with it, is because it's like, you got beat by the gunspire. It couldn't even attack.
So I think a lot of people might look at some of the new legendary cards and think that they're kind of for jokes and for memes and for fun. They're not really competitive or serious. Don't be so quick to dust them just yet. I think they have a role in the metagame for specific archetypes that either try to outvalue in the late stages of the game or give you other options. So while you might have some other legendaries you might want to craft, try to play around with some of these cards like Tess, Greymane, and you might be pleasantly surprised.
Bit of a throwback there with our thoughts on the Witchwood expansion, and all I'm saying is I'm pretty sure I got the correct call out of all the casters there with Azalina.
Yeah, you picked the card that, like, unbeknownst to you, just gets buffed.
I knew it. I saw it coming.
Just creates all kinds of madness later on. Yeah, Raven actually just, like, picks Azalina because he was playing some absolute dumpster trash tier hunter deck that just burned all its cards and then drew its one of Azalina sometimes to work as some card drawing.
We play Rexar, so it's exactly the same thing sometimes.
Right.
Kind of.
Except actually a good card, yeah.
You saying Azalina's not a good card?
It wasn't back then, no!
It was for Hunter. So anyway, moving on. Potentially the last game if Tom takes it, but Sequinox has been fighting back. And this, I feel like, it's just something you've been taking joy in lately, Sol. It's Quest Rogue.
Yes.
And it is going to be against, of course, Tom only has the Token Druid left as he gets into his happy place by the looks of things. Full zen moment there for Tom.
That honestly looked like he just woke up.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
he just suddenly like startled, like, oh, Hearthstone, yeah, I remember this.
Hey, look, Tom, we're on your time zone, not the other way around.
It's very true. Oh, this is a ugly looking opening hand from Sequinox, which is the first time I think anyone said Sequinox and ugly in the same sentence ever.
Yeah, I was a bit worried that the quest was playing you in. Oh, I was like, what? Yeah, you play the quest. I have no idea what you're going to say.
Strongly disagree with this turn one.
Oh, this is a ropey looking quest going on here.
Yeah.
But yes, carry on, sorry. Bad hand and all.
Right, yeah, Elven Minstrel is at least decent against Druid, can coin it out, but, you know, double Vanish Valera is nothing in the early game to do, so Sequinox will just be hoping that Tom doesn't have anything too explosive, because Vanishes are great cards in the matchup, but can you sit back and do nothing and then just use Vanish to rely on? Well, yes is the answer sometimes, if you can then fall back on Valera afterwards as well.
Yeah, because a lot of the time in a perfect world, you want to vanish with prep and then throw a board together again.
I think a lot of the time in perfect world, you want to be alive going into your Valera turn and then just vanish after that, right? Because you can just vanish and you literally don't care what you... Sorry, you can just Valera and you just literally don't care what your opponent does that turn because you just know that you're going to vanish them the next turn, which is always that full board reset.
What you can't do is vanish, then vanish again.
No.
That's what I thought you could do when Valera got announced. I thought I thought you effectively like kept a copy of the card in hand.
Oh, that would like transition to the next turn.
I thought once per turn,
Sure.
you double the card basically. I was like, this is insane.
It's still pretty insane.
It is, but it would have been really insane. Sonya getting cleared up there, not the highest impact Sonya in the world that we've seen, but it did get, you know, some form of job done.
Yeah, and with two Brewmasters in hand, it was just enough, you know, to do what it had to do. This isn't a matchup. I was talking to Kibler. Kibler came off, I believe, casting a Sequinox series himself, where I had some thoughts about his Sonya usage, and, you know, Kibler was making the argument that Sonya isn't particularly useful once you get the quest done, because you can't suicide your 4/4s into pretty much anything that Token Druid makes after that. So just using it to get the job done somewhere along the line.
And if you can suicide the mid, you're not in a great spot because they've got some big minions on the board. Drawing double Violet Teacher quite unfortunate for Tom when paired with drawing the Oaken Summons as well. So I don't believe he's running like a one-of Oak dude, is he?
A one-of Oak dude. No, he's not.
Oak man.
Yeah.
His hand got awfully large for Sequinox.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Many options.
A couple of Elven Minstrels will turn what was a very poor-looking hand into an extremely versatile one.
Tom, not his turn, so doesn't need to look at the board.
Drink with
Go
me,
back to sleep for a
friend.
second.
Yeah.
Oh, just focusing in. Maybe he's just transferring his consciousness to the astral plane of world champions. He's just conversing with Pavel and Firebat now on some kind of weird plays.
3 out of 5 now on deckhand, 4 in hand, and then either of the vanishes works to get 5 out of 5. Sequinox can essentially just sit back here for as long as he wants. There is no world, I think, where he just uses a vanish here to complete the quest on the deckhand. As long as he's not under threat, he doesn't need to complete his quest.
Right.
As soon as he is under threat, he can neutralize that threat with vanish and finish the quest with the deckhand at the same time.
Right, Tom just kind of doing a whole lot of nothing there. But he has got Malfurion now, and he is edging towards that UI to refill the hand. Soaking Summons is just a dead card, though, and with UI, it's kind of frustrating.
It is.
Just a space in hand that you're not allowed to use anymore.
Right. Sequinox very much considering his options here. He is, like, the obvious play here, like the vanilla play this turn, is just to spend your mana and go, like, Novice Engineer, Giggling Inventor. But then, obviously, you're taking a very long walk into a very short Spreading Plague from your opponent. But how bothered are you by Spreading Plague when you kind of want your opponent, in a weird way, to just make an annoying board so that you have an excuse to vanish and finish your quest?
It's not a very short walk into a very long Spreading Plague.
Pick your poison, it doesn't really matter.
So do you just... Tom here, do you just Whispering Woods? See what happens.
I honestly think if he just continues to nap through his turn, as he's doing through his opponents, he has an equal win rate in this matchup.
You think Tom's that good? Wow. I know he's good, but literally not playing the game and potentially winning,
yeah,
it's pretty good. This is the one turn, though, I'd say. Sequinox has to do something here.
He does. But he has the tools available to do that. With Phantom Knives now as well, or the quest usage, he has so many different ways to be able to push through this board state.
I was waiting for some weird sequence of events where the quest gets burned because you vanish or something, and then you're like, oh, no.
That's just dead, isn't he? Yep, Exactsies.
Yes, because I didn't even see the last charge of dagger there. Well, that could have gone much better for Sequinox, considering his opening hand was not great, but the double bounce on the bench, like you said, that just simply draws 4 cards.
Yeah.
And draws 4 minions as well, which is what he was lacking,
right?
Because he had the double vanish, he had the Valera as well, right? So he had the end game sorted, he just needed the minions to get there, and the Minstrel on its own, stranded in the hand, was just about enough.
Yeah, and it's possible I overreacted. Like, I don't know how bad a hand can be against Druid if it includes Coin Minstrel. We were talking about, particular plays on particular turns that have massive win rates against particular decks. I think Quest Rogue coining Minstrel against Druid is a massive win rate play, regardless of what the type of Druid is. But yeah, as mentioned, he got most of his work done with the quest, and he just kind of chilled out, did very little for a couple.
So did Tom.
Did for a couple of turns, and then I said the turn where Tom really develops his big board, Sequinox is going to be happy to just finish his quest on that turn with the Vanish. As it turns out, he didn't need to because he just had lethal in play.
Right.
And it was good that Sequinox recognized that much, much quicker than I did, because actually in his previous series that Kibler and Frodan was casting, there was a couple of spots where he clearly wasn't really understanding the full board state with Quest Rogue. One turn where he made a complete mess, and then one turn where he turned a very simple lethal into a very complicated lethal. Yeah. I'm not sure deliberately or not.
And I will say, it's actually very easy to do. Like, I found myself before, if I'm under pressure, being so focused on my opponent pressuring me on the board, that I don't look at his health total.
Oh, that's exactly where I was.
I just don't look at the health total and realize, oh wait, I can just kill them.
Right.
Like, wait, I'm trying to claim minions when I can just hit them in the face and win. It's very easy to just tunnel, and you don't even notice yourself doing it.
Right, because, you know, I already set it up and said, you know, as soon as the board state gets made, you have a really nice Vanish turn. Then the board state got made, but the Vanish was a little bit awkward because the Death Rattle was going to leave 2/2s in play. Then I got very excited that, you know, Fan of Knives was still a clear and, like, all kinds of wonderful stuff. But, oh, you know, he's dead.
Yeah, and I will say, just as a final point, that really does highlight the whole, well, Token Druid took, what, 5 turns, 6 turns to get going and do anything?
Yeah.
And that gave Questrogue all time in the world. Talk about Token Druid. Now on to a mirror and double wild growth from Sequinox and wild growth with the Nourish from Tom. He does have the coins, so I feel like this is a fair game at this point.
It is, but Sequinox just has a little bit more juice in his deck, which might make things interesting, because one of the big problems in the Token Druid matchup historically is that you can't really make any board that doesn't just make you immediately lose the game to Spreading Plague. And originally, like, this matchup was being played as a fatigue matchup very early on when the deck first appeared. Then people started to realize that, you know, maybe that was kind of futile and that, you know, that big explosion of threats versus threats happened at the end of the game anyway, so you might as well do it a bit earlier on.
Save everyone's time.
Plus, yeah, they just got really bored with 45-minute Token Druid games. But now that this has developed a little bit, you have the opportunity as the Druid with the Saranai Chain Gang deck, for example, to make these slightly narrower and taller board states that don't get completely blown out by Spreading Plague.
Okay. Why did he play that?
Well, it looks silly, I agree, but it was the point I was just making, right? Like, I think Tom understands he can't just wait this out and play a conventional Token Druid mirror and trade threat for threat, because then he just loses every single time, right? There's so much more gas in Sequinox's deck.
And also with this hand as well, the second there isn't exactly a swipe or a Spreading Plague, well, then you Pirate the Wild and kill your opponent, and you win. So, I was kind of joking, just going, oh, you know, why would you even play that? But that's kind of the whole point you're getting across, right? It's like, so if you say, well, why am I even playing this? Then you do fatigue, then you play it. So
right. I mean, if you can divine on turn 4 that if you wait and do nothing and cast this Whispering Woods on turn 22 of the game, and that eventuality works out in your favor, more power to you. You're a genius. Yeah, but no one can do that. So just playing your cards in what can work out as favorable spots for you is just a much better.
And I will say, Tom didn't just throw this out there and cross fingers. This is a...
Tom looks like he's chilling. I think he's okay. I think
there was just a moment where I was like, bro. Yeah. Well, he didn't attack with 2 of them.
No, he did not.
So he is, in fact, not fine.
He is not chilling at all.
He is not chilling all day.
Get out.
Dink. For DJ. I'll pass that one across. But yeah, what I was getting at is there was a plan, right? There was the Power of the Wild. If Spreading Plague was played, then it wouldn't. There's nothing else to follow up with, so the tokens live. Yeah. Power of the Wild like you did. You did miss a couple of attacks there, maybe taking a little bit too long. But now, Spreading Plague with the Soul of the Forest is unfortunate, I would say, for Mr. 60229.
That is one way of looking at it.
And now, Sequinox has the... Here we go. Sequinox has the freedom to use Nourish for a draw to get these buff cards now. You know, he can go for Friendship Bats, he can go for Savage Draw. Tom now is going to throw the Spreading Plague in the way. He has the Arcane Tyrant as well. But doesn't have anything to buff them up with.
He doesn't. It is a good counterpunch, though. He needed something to get himself back into this game state very rapidly. And yeah, Sequinox quite rightly just slowing down just for a second. It does look like a very obvious Nourish, I agree, but there is no reason just to snap it out there. He does need to just consider all of his draws and consider, you know, what the various attacks he can make are before he commits to a line.
Yeah, I think if Tom drew anything except Spreading Plague there, he just loses almost on the spot.
Yeah, maybe.
Because Tom also, seeing 0 buffs from Sequinox, probably has to assume there's 1 there. I know. There's the Nourish for the draw. You can still get buffs. Wait, did he fully trade in before the draw?
He did, yeah.
Time waits for no one.
He's playing power. He's playing one power.
Playing one copy of Power of the World, yeah, I was thinking that as well.
This is a big deal. He loses 4 minions now to these 1/5s. Well, you loses 3 because there's only 3 1/5s, but yeah, you get the gist of my plan here. He actually loses the board now, and although there is a spreading plague, there's a UI there. So Sequinox has still got game. He hasn't got that much game this turn.
What I will say is if he did draw the Power of the Wild after the fact there, he still would have buffed all of his 2/1s into 3/2s, right? And been completely resistant to the swipe anyway, like after the fact.
Yeah, I just meant you wouldn't be resistant to the 1/5s.
Sure.
He just lost 4 minions with the hero power there potentially. When he wouldn't have lost, he would have lost 2. Now we see the joy of Flubbidinous Floop duplicating and mimicking this giggling inventor.
And this is the difference, right? Because despite Tom going for the risky play with the early Whispering Woods and it getting countered by Spreading Plague, which is absolute worst case scenario, actually in a conventional Tokyo-Druid mirror, if you were to evaluate this situation and say, okay, what's been used? Tom has used 1 Spreading Plague, 1 Whispering Woods in terms of like very relevant cards in the matchup.
1 Branching Pass and 1 Power of the Wild, right?
Sure. I'm talking about like developing board states, right?
Okay,
like
okay,
last board state wins, essentially, right? In Token Druid Mirror. Sequinox has actually used a Soul of the Forest. So if this was just a conventional Token Druid matchup, you could argue that Tom was actually in a fine position. The fact that Sequinox just has the ability to make 3 or 4 extra board states with the random, taunt package minions that he has in his deck means that Tom is still fighting from a very significant disadvantage.
Like an unfair battle royale moment right now.
Right.
Well, my opponent just has more stuff than I do, so they're gonna win.
Yeah, my opponent just landed on a double heavy.
Right. If you just take your UI and be happy with it right now?
I am quite often very happy with the UI.
Could trade in a 2/1. Plague for 2 and then Strong Shell. And just sell UI next turn.
I like, these are all words and I'm very interested in what you're saying. But it's turn 10 and there's an Ultimate Infestation in hand.
Okay. I mean, that was my first thing, right?
Yeah,
I'm not arguing with that.
I like that you're thinking, but sometimes...
Thank you, Sol. You appreciate when I think.
Thinking is overrated.
I've told you this for years and you keep laughing at me.
You have.
And now you just feel like Tom is just 1 turn behind everything that Sequinox can do.
He absolutely is.
There's a UI, but UI's not going to have to go next turn now, and Sequinox can pretty much do this.
The circle of life is over.
I think you saw it on Sequinox's face as well last turn when he cast his UI and he kind of made his play and he sat back in his chair. Oh, sorry, he sat forward in his chair and kind of awaited Tom's play. And when Tom's play was not UI of his own, he then sort of, okay, sat back. He's like, okay, I'm in control. This is great.
I just have more stuff than my opponent. You can argue that his deck is just better than his opponent's as well. That's when you gotta start to just learn to trust what's gonna happen and be happy.
Tom trying his best just to scramble, try and find some board state that he can build a platform from. But again, Sequinox has control. He's just that half turn ahead where he's just doing everything first himself. And if Tom ever generates a massive board state, Sequinox has the ability to Spreading Plague, like Strong Shell, for example. It's not just the Soul of the Forest punish that the conventional Token Druid has. This newer version has so many more ways to leverage those taunt minions.
Yeah, it's very, very scary overall because there's just so much you can do. Like, you could even just double Strong Shell now if you wanted with Power of the Wild just to make a big board without having to really commit the board creation tools. That makes sense. It even has that Spellstone, which looks to be it's greater, so it'll just kill off a 5/5 if you want.
5/5, yeah.
You can also probably just slow roll this game, to be honest. Just 1/5 into the 1/2, hero power it. Spellstone, go face. You know. Not too face. He's got a big play instead. Getting that Soul of the Forest back is insane, right? If you don't answer this, Tom, you're probably dead next turn.
I respect it.
I mean, setting up lethal is never a bad idea.
Yeah, and crucially, like this was one of the keys to the old Token Druid mirror. Is like you made your big explosive turns like this. You could answer the question, "What do I do if he plays Spreading Plague?"
Yeah.
And here are many ways to chew through a Spreading Plague that is just really kind of irrelevant to him at this point.
And when you beat Spreading Plague and have stuff on the board still, that's the final hurdle, I would say, in this matchup.
What I will say is the worry for him potentially can be Spreading Plague Soul of the Forest, like whether he has the ability to push his way through that while being secure enough to just not die to a counter swing the other way. But as you mentioned earlier when I was going through my like kind of threat allocation thing, Tom has used Branching Paths already, so his massive damage output potential is not as high as it could be.
The ludicrous speed output of the Token Druid. This looks very meager in the face of Sequinox's board. Like I said, I talked about how powerful Malfurion is, but it ain't that good.
No.
It can't completely solo games, especially mirror matches. The scratch, almost cartoon-like scratch of the head, the thinking face.
Right.
And then the, 1, 2, 3.
Next up, counting on fingers, followed by running out, followed by pulling off his socks and finishing off on his toes.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Get your mind out of the gutter, Raven.
Get your words out the gutter, then I will.
Never.
See, this is where Sequinox is just a much better player than I am. I would have gone just love this stuff.
Yeah.
It probably gets there. Let's go.
Right.
I'll say, don't get me wrong, I don't get caught out by the rope. But I also miss lethal a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Death is eternal.
So we're about to find out. It's not patently obvious. Neither of us have been bothered to count whether it's been lethal or not. We've just left that to Sequinox. I'm sure you guys in Twitch chat have been screaming at us for several minutes.
That's what it is, but it kind of is. It's even now the swipe for an extra 4 next turn, and what does Tom do versus this? No Spreading Plague. There are far too many attacks to consider even a giggling inventor to stop this happening.
Right.
Tom's just playing UI because favorite card. It's like, you know what? I started this on a UI.
Hey, Sequinox, nice win. Just a reminder, I kept this card and won a world championship, all right?
Yeah. You beat me once. I beat everyone else 1,000 times so far. So beat that. But Sequinox taking a win, a sigh of relief, and there's always going to be just a slight, like, I got Tom this round. You know, because he's not really someone you want to run into when you actually want to win things.
Right.
But Sequinox did manage it. Huge win. 4-0 now in Swiss so far for him. So, you know, fair play. I don't say it often. So, but good pick.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I was a little worried there. Of course, I set it up when it went to the 2-0 score that, of course, Token Druid was the main deck that Sequinox is targeting. It's not a true target lineup of any deck in the classic Conquest sense, but it's definitely got a strong nod towards Token Druid. So even though he was 0-2 down, it was going to be a matter of, you know, getting Quest Rogue across the line against the Token Druid. Then he had the vastly superior Druid deck for the mirror specifically.
So exactly, play out
right,
there.
exactly.
Right?
And then even lock alongside that, which is just a phenomenal matchup against Token Druid as well. So you can see just with Token Druid being, again, the most popular deck in the format, we might see a similar story as we saw last week with Death Rattle Hunter, where it just becomes so vulnerable that the players who had the right read can really exploit that Token Druid and really use that to leverage a position in the full championships.
Yeah, it's been working out for them so far. We are plowing through this Swiss bracket for the Asia Pacific for playoffs. Plenty more from round 4 coming up, so don't go anywhere.
welcome to the Hearthstone Championship Tour's next stop in Seoul, South Korea.
Teams in Hearthstone are more important than ever, even in an individual game like Hearthstone.
Muzzy, Amnesiac, and I are on the same team. Muzzy crushes North America. He's been the point leader for 2 years in a row already. He's not going to get 30 in a row without a fight.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Championship Tour's fall playoffs for Asia Pacific. We're going to continue our round 4 coverage of the Swiss portion of the event, where we ultimately take top 8 for tomorrow and then going into the top 4 for the fall championships. My name is Frodan, and I am joined by Brian Kebler, who is enjoying his last few moments of his birthday.
I think we're long past now.
Are we long past?
I think it's like a 1 a.m. here.
So in Hawaii, if you guys are joining us, you are having the last few minutes of Brian Kibler's birthday. So thank you for joining us, Kibler. Happy birthday again.
Thank you.
So coming up here, we have additional coverage of round 4 with Shaxi versus Tonsoku. Shaxi, the #1 points leader for all of Asia Pacific so far in 2018. So even if things don't go for him this playoffs or even the next playoffs, perhaps he has an opportunity to come in as a last call qualifier. Meanwhile, Tonsoku, hot off his summer championship appearance, is looking to repeat that, and they're going to need some help because they're both at 2-1 right now.
Yeah. 2 losses is generally the point at which you are largely out of top 8 contention, and both these players hoping to get this one here to keep themselves in that hunt, and it will be an odd rogue mirror that we come in on now.
A couple of updates on other scores as well. Alpay, that we saw on stream earlier, he is 4-0. Mage, who we saw from the Spring Championships in 2017, he's improved to 3-1. Akumaker takes his first loss to Doki, even though he got paired down. And Trezred takes down Samuel Tsao, who was our dark horse in the World Championship last year, making a run at HCT this year.
Yeah, Trezred, also another Japanese player who made it to a championship that season, I believe, previous to Tonsoku. There's been a pretty big resurgence or pretty big surge of Japanese players who have made these strong runs. Though now it seems to be South Korea that saw 42% of the players from Korea in this particular playoff.
Yeah, that's right. So coming into game number 2 here, apologies, I thought we were going into 3. It's an odd rogue mirror. Tonsoku brought a control lineup to a lot of the playoffs in the past, dating back to last year. However, when we interviewed Tonsoku at the most recent championship back in the summer season, he said that he actually is an aggro lover. He played control because he just wasn't sure if he could play the aggro lineups because aggro was considered a little bit weak back then. Very interesting, considering that we've had a handful of players say that too. Sintolo comes to mind where he's an aggro lover, but yet the World Championship lineup he brought, where he got 3rd place, 3rd, 4th, it was an action control lineup, so pretty cool.
Well, speaking of the aggro control dynamic, it is Shaxi who's on control here, using the Vilespine Slayer to take down the 6/6 Blood Knight from Tonsoku. We've seen a lot of Blood Knights throughout the course of this event already, and Tonsoku here going to have hope that Shaxi does not have one of his own, as he needs to give the Inventor to protect himself. No Blood Knight coming down for Shaxi, though. Still a pretty powerful response, able to pick apart this board without really using any resources, thanks to the SI agent as well.
Yeah, Blood Knight is just so important for the swings, but people are planning around it now. You know, a lot of times, if you can't afford to hold off on certain cards, like not playing your Blood Knight on 3, you try not to because of how swingy it is. On the flip side, some people have been very cautious with whether or not they extend into Divine Shields, or they'd rather cash in on their Divine Shields immediately with the Blood Knight instead of trying to wait for a swing on their opponents. And the value that you get from early game tempo like that can be massive.
And this Giggly Inventor for Shaxi here, hoping there's no Blood Knight on the other side, already seen one. Gonna use to protect his board. Gonna be able to pick apart Tonsoku's board to be just a single minion. So a lot of swings in addition it's going to take down his Anoyoton squad. Now, this is an awkward hand for Tonsoku here. He has Myro's Unstable Element, Leroy, which are great, giving you ways to close out games, but right now he's behind in the board, so those are not what he wants to see in his hand. He doesn't have the mana to dagger up and play the deckhand plus Fungalmancer, so no charge there either.
Yeah, this is just kind of exactly one of the punishes for Odd Rogue that's really important as a foundational block, building block. How often you're attacking with the dagger in the event that you really need things like South Sea Deckhand or even just that extra little bit of damage. I mean, if I'm in Tansoku's position, I think I have to address the state of the board as much as I can here. So I would love to dagger in some capacity.
Oh, wow.
Stable element. I don't.
Yeah, look. that is a Hail Mary play right there. Going for the. It looks like he's doing it though. Wow. I don't know if he's going to have time to actually react to all the cards he draws with the Rogue burning like this. Does not have the mana to dagger up either.
So I think Tansoku's hoping to draw early game, like 1 mana plays, so that way he can fill up the board back up. This is similar to what some people do in Zoo Warlock Mirrors or in general fast matchups for Zoo.
Fungalmancer picked up by Shaxi here. He can play it alongside his ability to dagger up. So he's going to be able to deal with this board pretty handily here. The interesting thing for Shaxi is that now he clearly has inevitability. If he can survive, pushing Tansoku into fatigue, he will, of course, win this game with Tansoku with no cards left in his deck. However, he may still just be better off just pushing damage to the face to force that fatigue damage to matter immediately because Tansoku has a bunch more cards than he does.
I don't know if that's even just going to be relevant at a certain point just because of how much the damage stacks at the late stages of the game when fatigue starts kicking in.
Well, the concern would be, okay, can he burst me down with, say, Leroy Coldblood, or a bunch of deadly poisons or whatever. But Tansoku already getting a bunch of damage pushed in his face. Giggling Inventor is going to buy him some time, but again, time is not on his side because every turn that goes by, it's just increasing damage he's taking. Flame Elemental plus Vile Spine.
Yeah, that's just going to settle it.
I think this actually may just be able to push through lethal damage, including the fatigue, thanks to the deadly poison as well. Maybe close at least. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now he's 1 damage off, I believe, with the deadly here.
Doesn't need to seal it right here, right now. Instead, take a little bit of a conservative approach, ensure that he has the maximum amount of defense going. Tansoku concedes, and that's going to be game 2 as a tied series, 1 game apiece. I mean, I guess going into this, it's just really going to matter about who gets the last edge. But important to note is that the Odd Rogue, again, struggling a little bit. Tansoku in game number 1 off stream started with Odd Rogue up against the Druid from Shaxi, and that lost. So right now, 2 losses very quickly for the Odd Rogue.
But to be fair, it lost to the Odd Rogue. So Odd Rogue... It's not really struggling when it loses the mirror match.
Well, it's
straight on 50%.
Well, it's not necessarily struggling in a traditional sense, but if its best chance to win is against
itself. Sure, if you believe that in the matchup that this is its best chance to get through, then yes, it could have an uphill battle ahead of it for sure.
Sure. Going into game number 3, we have Zoo Warlock against Odd Rogue. Now, this is a matchup where Odd Rogue really likes.
It is. And this is a matchup where you see the rarely seen coin dagger up on turn 1 because it is so powerful taking down that Flame Imp that we see from Shaxi here.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting that Odd Rogue is just so strong. And this reminds me of something that we were talking about backstage, Kibler, where having a 2 damage hero power early on that can impact the board
so gross.
Can just beat a lot of fast decks. Like, we're talking about Odd Mage, and we're like kind of joking around like, oh, Odd Mage is like worse Odd Rogue. We're like, well, if you play control style, if you have like a Firefly, that plus the 2 damage Mage hero power can just solo a lot of the early openings from Zoo.
And for the Rogue, you get that twice. It's not even that you do spend your 2 mana, get 2 damage. You get 2 damage split across 2 different turns, so 4 total damage, which is just devastating in terms of early board control. But Shaxi has a great answer to it with the Voidwalker. The fact that he has a 3 health minion to help protect is actually going to go ahead and deadly poison up here. That is massive respect for the potential protection of that Light Ward.
Yeah, I think Tansoku highly prioritizes killing off.
To play the Dire Mole here rather than perhaps the Squire, because the Dire Mole can just get itself killed by a single healing effect here. So, for instance, this Voodoo Doctor on the face can actually kill this.
Yeah.
Whereas if he had played Argent Squire, it would only be able to take down the shield of the Argent Squire.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
So that's, given the choice between those on that board, it seems like the Argent Squire just is going to survive the turn. Whereas now, he doesn't have the Argent Squire to attack into this Voodoo Doctor, for instance.
Well, I can understand the Squire, not playing the Squire if you're afraid of people playing Blood Knight. However,
true, though.
I mean, I would probably favor playing the Firefly in that position, saving the Diamond later if you feel like being pessimistic. Oh man, this is supposed to be a good match for Arog, but this is just very wide on the board.
It's a very strong draw for Shoxi here.
That being said, Tonsoku has all 1-mana plays right back. This is kind of where
efficient.
It could struggle if it didn't have 3 drops, but very good board presence in this spot. So Tonsoku, thinking about how he wants to sequence this, the thing is, he's been holding these Argent Squires because of the threat of things like the Blood Knight, but you can't wait like that forever.
Yeah, I was actually just pulling up the list. There is a single copy of Blood Knight in Shoxi's deck. So many versions of you do not play Blood Knight, so I think that was what was on Tonsoku's mind regarding not playing the Argent Squire. So Blood Knight, generally a super popular tech card in Odd Rogue. Obviously, you can only play odd cards. It's a 3-drop. It's so powerful against so many decks. But Zoo has so many powerful options, you often don't see it including Blood Knight or Void Ripper, things like this.
Right, and this is where Tonsoku is hedging. He's playing 1 Argent Squire because he recognizes the value of a little bit of the board control and keeping it alive, but oh, Shaxi kind of whiffing on this Keleseth life tap turn. This is pretty much as good as it gets for Tonsoku. If he can get a very nice 3-mana minion, he can develop powerfully. That's also a really good draw, too. And now Tonsoku has the ability to be aggressive himself with the Cold Blood. So he can push in a lot of damage in the next coming turns. And then in the worst case scenario, he miners the stables to finish the game.
And I think he's going to hold on to this Argent Squire to enable the Vilespine Slayer next turn.
Yeah, seems good. Oh, and speaking of which, Blood Knight comes into the hand.
Tonsoku very happy that he's going to be very happy that he did not deploy that Argent Squire. I think we may just see a double 3-drop here. They're both 4/4s. Yes. So a pair of 4/4s is quite strong. The fact that he has the Keleseth buff. Speaking of strong, that's a Fungal Mancer. I don't know that that's as good as a Vilespine here. I think you still want a Vilespine and then just trade your 5/1 with one of these 4/4s given the board state.
Yeah, agreed. The Fungal Mancer, though, in the follow-up push is going to be devastating. And just look at the awkward pairing that Shaxi has in his hand with Leroy Jenkins and Soulfire. That's fantastic for finishing. So Tonsoku's at 15. He's hoping Tonsoku has to use a little bit of his life in order to control the state of the board. In fact, if Tonsoku doesn't kill this 4/4, he's in jeopardy of potentially taking too much damage. I mean, he is alive to Leroy Soulfire.
There is a copy of Despicable Dreadlord in Shoxi's deck as well, which makes him potentially really want to trade up this 5/1.
Well, Life Drinker helps him get a little bit closer.
Okay, that is a little bit of reach and a little bit of survivability as well.
Man, it's so close for Shaxi.
And the scary thing is now for Tonsoku is that Myra's Unstable Element can represent fatigue.
Right. If he plays Myra's Unstable and then doesn't have a taunt in a way with Giggling Inventor, then Leroy Soulfire will end the game. So he has to be very mindful about how he times this.
Well, he can take 1 more damage on top of that to avoid dying. But he cannot take more than 1 here without risking dying to that combination if he does play Myra's at any point.
Yeah, I honestly, why not? Extending onto the board here for Tonsoku. Shaxi can't really punish that much, per se. I think the value of holding out to Dire Maul is in case you need to combo a card, like second Vilespine Slayer or the SI7 agent, but I think I maximize my damage.
Both maximize your damage and the amount of cards you actually get off of Myra's Unstable Element if you cast it next turn.
Solarium does give Shaxi a potential out. board 5, 10, 12, 14.
Exact
that's
lethal.
That's exactly
right
lethal.
I think that Shaxi just played into being dead on board.
Yes, that life tap. I think Tonsoku's like, wait, really?
You're just dead, right?
Yeah, like it's one of those things. It's very shocking when your opponent just like puts themselves within range.
It's interesting. Did he draw? He drew Solarium off of life tap, or did he
drew Solarium off of? I think what ended up happening with Solarium was to draw off the top, and he tapped into the doubling in. I think that's what happened.
So because he could have Solariumed rather than tapping and tried to find, say, Chain Gang.
Yeah.
Because I'm just trying to like recreate that turn in my head. I'm just like, how did we get to the point? It's like tap die.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is, even if he had that option, he could have played the doubling imp and then Soulfire to try to stay alive.
Right.
Because he would have killed the 5/2 and then offset that damage by his own life tap. So that definitely felt like Shaxi was sort of autopiloting at that point.
Yeah, I think he may have just not quite counted the damage. He's like, all right, I got to get a good board presence. Maybe I also just been in a position where I'm like, okay, well, I'm dead.
Or perhaps the Hail Mary of like, maybe he doesn't see it.
Yeah,
maybe he's too tunnel vision.
To be fair, sometimes you are in a position where it's like, well, I just have to hope they screw up because there's no way I win.
Right.
Because I use these resources that I'm relying on potentially, closing out the game. I can't win from here. I'm too far behind.
Yeah, so makes sense. All right, well, Shaxi is up 2-1. He is our points leader looking to cement his record in Swiss. When we come back, we'll find out if Tonsoku, the people's champion of Japan, will be able to strike back.
With the developers.
As far as the most useful hero power, probably still gonna have to go with lesser heal. Stub your toe, boom, fixed. Bump your shin on a table, done. Didn't feel like going to the gym that day, done.
The most useful hero power to have in real life would definitely be Toki's. Just rewind. The most useful hero power to have in real life would definitely be
teleportation. It's my favorite superpower. I would want that just like in my little visual UI on the bottom of my glasses right here, just click it and like teleport to work or teleport to the store or whatever. Parking's so much easier, right?
Call a friend so that I could pull in Mr. Dean Ayala or possibly Mike Donet to finish a turn/game for me, and that they're both far better players than I'll ever hope to be.
And now it's time for the well-played moment.
For this week's well-played moment, we're choosing Hunter Ace versus Silvers from the third round of Swiss, specifically Game 5, the Togwoggle Malagos hybrid Druid Mirror.
Both players were waiting for the right time to go off. And then Hunter Ace sees double Dream Petal Forest come out, and that one hits the Floop in his hand. So then the next turn, Silver plays the other one, and that reduces the Azalina cost in his hand. So then Hunter Ace realizes that there's really only one thing that he could want to reduce the cost of that much, and that's Azalina. He spots the fact that he could go with his own Azalina and go for a near infinite chain of Azalinas plus naturalizes to fatigue Silvers to death from 50-odd health.
Because he's a little bit slow, he ends up roping, so he even finds a way to like maximize the amount of burns by not looping Azalina again. He like spreading plagues and naturalizes his own spreading plague just to get maximum burnout. Hunter Ace is just like a fantastic intuitive player. He just works things out fantastically quickly. He's just an adorable Norwegian self-learning AI, essentially.
He's figuring out on the fly, and I think that's just a different display of skill that we don't usually get to see in Hearthstone, which is spontaneity, chaos, and being able to figure out a line through all of that. Yeah. In my opinion, that's a really cool, well-played moment. Definitely make sure to check out that episode of Talkstone. I may be a little bit biased as to why, but I think it's really fun. We're going to be doing Talkstone after each playoff week as well. So I believe Raven is joining me and TJ this week. When are you going to join us on Talkstone, Kevin?
You never asked.
Well, we just assumed that you want to run home and hang out with Shiro and Natalie back at,
I'm a busy guy. I'm a busy guy.
Sure. There's got a lot of fans and people to please and dogs to feed.
Just the one.
Just the one, actually.
But he's a really demanding dog.
He is worth about 3 or 4 at least.
Way more.
All right, so going back into the series, if you guys are just joining us, Shaxi versus Tonsoku, a clash between our points leader for all of Asia Pacific, up against Tonsoku, who is mostly known as a YouTuber for the Japanese Hearthstone audience. And just, you know, really fun guy in general. He came to the Summer Championships not necessarily having the highest expectations, but after performing pretty decently in the summer season, feels like he's just going to try to see if he can climb back again. Reminds me a lot of like Tice in a way, you know, just like focuses mainly on his content first and tries to still qualify for playoffs and see how deep he can go.
Tice just wrecks everyone somehow. He still makes it every single season.
I'm really impressed by people like Tice and Dog and some of these people who like have major, huge streams alongside UKibler, and then they have to balance entertainment with also trying to be competitive, and it's tough, especially towards the end of the season where you're like panicking for the ladder.
We've seen a couple of interesting plays just in the first couple turns of this particular game. Shaxi just choosing to use his turn 2, soul-firing the Flame Imp, then Tonsoku replying by using a Soul Infusion to buff of a Voidwalker, both recognizing early board presence is crucial in this matchup. If you get even incrementally ahead, you tend to snowball that advantage. And speaking of snowballing advantage, there's nothing better at that than Fungalmancer in the early turns of this game, as Tonsoku absolutely wipes away Shaxi's board and has a pretty dominant board of his own. Even that Dreadlord in Shaxi's hand is not enough to deal significant damage to this because they're all above 1 health.
Yeah, it's not all too common to see the player that goes first often be in the back foot this early on. It's largely the player that goes second has to determine the early swing, but that is the value of like having that extra body here for Tonsoku to get that Fungalmancer, and why Shaxi responded with that early Soulfire, because he understood that in order to get that early advantage, you have to control the state of the board. You know, Tonsoku having that Flame Imp, Shaxi having nothing, that's often going to lead for recipe for disaster for the player that's on the defensive.
And it may seem fairly straightforward here. It's like, okay, he got ahead, he's winning, cool, like how interesting is that? But both players made decisions of using crucial resources like, I'll use my Soul Infusion on just this Voidwalker. I'll fire off my Soulfire, recognizing, hey, that Flame Imp being on board against my thing that's smaller than Flame Imp is going to be devastating.
Yeah, a lot of times, you can set your opponent to 1 health this turn, but I think Tonsoku is just going to value trying to control the state of the board. Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head. Zoo Warlock is a deck that tests your fundamentals about not only just Hearthstone in general, but your matchup knowledge. It really ensures that you understand what you're playing around, and more importantly, the building blocks that you set really early on to ensure that you can have snowball victories. Zoo can climb out to a victory, and I mean, sometimes there is the top deck Soulfire for the exact lethal, but a lot of times you have runaway games because of how you lay the building.
You mean like this one? You're at 1, I'm at 23. I got 5 guys, you got some imps.
It's not even close. It's not even close, and I think that's going to wrap up game number 4. Going to game number 5, checking in on what actually happened. Druid was banned from Tonsoku, so that means Hunter remains.
Hunter.
Yeah. And the question mark class, because I think a lot of casters are split on whether or not they like it or don't like it.
Well, I would say that I don't like Death Rattle Hunter, and I do like Subject 9 Hunter. And that's what Tonsoku has in his lineup, is the Subject 9 Hunter. Specifically, he actually has the double Snape Trap, double Venom Strike Trap version, which is much stronger against Zoo than versions that are going heavy on, say, Explosive Trap or have Rat Trap. Because so much of what these games come down to, as we saw there, is the early game board. And having Snakes and Venom Strike to protect your early minions is very valuable in those fights.
Yeah, and also it'll come down to whether or not you can get that early tempo for Zoo, because you have to control the state of the board for Hunter. But part of what makes Hunter so scary is that they can flip the switch. If they're not building the board with early minions with Secret Keeper and Animal Companions, they have the Spellstone, and then if they don't have that, they have just straight up burn. And throw all that out, Deathstalker Rexer still has the ability to Hail Mary and still rescue the game. So going to game number 5, Zoo Warlock. Now this is the deck that is under fire, whether or not it'll get reverse swept. And I feel like we've been seeing that a lot. You know, last week at Euro playoffs, there's definitely been a little bit of attrition back and forth, trading one game here, one game there. A couple reverse sweeps. This week, it feels like we've been seeing non-stop 2-0 leads dissipate with a 3-0 reverse sweep from the opponent.
There are certainly decks that are quite volatile in terms of what their matchup spread looks like. You know, we've seen decks like Token Druid, for instance. It's like, okay, well, this is a powerful deck in particular matchups, but it is very vulnerable if your opponent has actually significant board clear, like even Warlock. Here, we actually see a trap come down for Tonsoku, and Shaxi's going to check it. Okay, it is explosive, and we notice he checks to base because explosive is the worst possible punish. But this actually ends up being pretty good for Shaxi because he's just essentially losing his Voidwalker to that trap, and that's not really a terrible situation. All right. Misha's the best hope that Tonsoku had there.
Yeah, that was huge.
But there is a Soulfire available, which I think we may see coming. I think we're looking to see if we find a Voodoo Doctor here to see if we get the free Happy Cool before we find the Soulfire. Just wants to get maximum board presence. And now this is where Tonsoku wishes, all right, I kind of want to have a explosive trap. It's one of the reasons that explosive trap is kind of the least exciting trap because it can just kind of do nothing on a lot of boards.
Yeah, there's only one explosive trap, which is pretty standard for a lot of these Secret Hunter builds. They like a lot of one-ofs and then a couple of board-centric ones, Snake Trap, Venom's Night Trap. They include 2-ofs.
Well, now this Venom Strike is pretty powerful for Tonsoku because Shaxi just cleared the Crackling Razor Maw, didn't want a Houndmaster to come down or some sort of second Razor Maw. I wonder if it actually, just looking at that, like I wonder if the worst outcome for Shaxi is if that's Snake or Venom Strike, and it's most likely those. Like going face can trigger Wandering, he has to trade off his entire board, essentially, to get rid of that. Now he's just gonna get Spellstone. Like I wonder if the minion attack there from Shaxi was just a blunder because there's no more explosive. There's only a single copy of explosive. If you just push this damage to face, then there's a 3-2 up against your board of a bunch of stuff.
Let's map that out. So there's Freezing Trap, Snake Trap, Venom Strike Trap, and Wandering Monster. And Freezing Trap, not really that impactful if you attack the face. It's pretty much just Wandering Monster that he didn't want to walk into, but most likely with 4 secrets being Snake Trap or Venom Strike Trap, you could have walked into a disaster. And then, of course, the setup for the Spellstone would have been bad. Shaxi ended up just giving Tonsoku a lot of opportunity to blow him out, and that's exactly what happened. So I think you're 100% on the dot here, Kibler.
And now, the Spellstone, it's like, this is 12-12 worth of stats, and that is more than Shaxi can generate this turn. And there's another Spellstone potentially coming down, only a lesser one. It was just drawn. Perhaps Shaxi was trying to play around the possibility of a Houndmaster, because that is definitely a threat coming out of this Hunter deck.
That's true.
However, the Houndmaster is likely to still be able to come down if there's, I guess a Snake Trap wouldn't allow it actually come down either. So he's playing around Houndmaster there with that attack, which then would have ended up being a Houndmaster.
This is brutal. And, now that we see Hunter is pretty much almost running away with the state of the game here, I do want to point out 2 things. One is the downsides of having something like Happy Ghoul without heal. It does kind of sit dead in your hand, which is why a lot of players, even though they try keeping it, do want to make sure that they have some healing in the process. The second thing is you also saw Solarium basically just kind of whiff and fizzle out. But at the same time, the Solarium was Shaxi's only chance to really pull out of that situation. Yeah. So while Shaxi concedes and Tonsoku takes it 3-2, I do want to make a point that as many people might be questioning whether Solarium is a really good card or not in these Zoo Warlock decks, I mean, if Shaxi were to make a comeback, it was from that card specifically. He'd pull a Soulfire, he'd pull a healing card, really cheap, get board control back, and then fight against the Hunter's state of massive 3-3 Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, obviously, the huge swing there was the Spellstone. That's one of the reasons that I think that this version of Hunter is the one that I prefer the most, because you can fight for the early board with your Secret Keepers and Dire Moles and Crackling Razor Maws. And then you have the ability to have these huge explosive mid-game turns that only kind of require you to have drawn Spellstone, then some other stuff. Whereas Death Rattle Hunter, you kind of flounder for the first couple of turns, maybe have a Candle Shot, and maybe draw your Keleseth, and then you're hoping to have the right things come together for your mid-game turns to have those explosive draws. It's great against control because you have the cubes that are so powerful if you get long games, but kind of leave you without defenses in the early turns.
Yep, well said. Secret Hunter, in my opinion, is the best build for Hunter, especially in this tournament with so many aggressive lineups. And once again, coming in clutch. Only one game appeared for Tonsoku, but able to complete the reverse sweep over Zoo Warlock, one of the most predicted decks for this tournament. We're going to hop into another series coming up for you guys, and this one is a couple of faces that we saw earlier today. Staz versus Rivius from Team Doc. And now Rivius has one of the more interesting lineups in the tournament with Mecha'thuns all throughout. However, his decks have been getting banned. Guess what was banned for this matchup, head-to-head?
Mecha'thun?
Mecha'thun Warrior was banned.
So I don't think he was banning specifically the Mecha'thun part of that deck. I think he was banning... I mean, Staz, we see the deck that Staz is playing right here. This is Odd Paladin. This is a deck that's pretty bad against Warpath and Bloodrazor decks.
Yes.
And that's what that Warrior deck is. So I expected the risk, and that's frankly, as Subtle mentioned, part of what makes Rivius' lineup pretty inspired is because you have this deck which is powerful against Token Druid, which is powerful against the Odd Paladin, and yet also has the Mecha'thun package to win against the other controlling decks.
Yeah, so a lot of the problem these control decks have is the ability to go over the top of those other slow decks, and part of what makes Control Priest so scary is its versatility too. It can handle the aggressive decks with the Dustbreakers, the Wild Pyromancers, you know, the Dragon control, and then you can burst out a lot of those decks that you see like Quest Rogue if they're able to land the Shadow Reaper random. And the problem is that you just have to be sorry, not the Quest Rogues, but like in general, what makes Control Priest really powerful for this tournament is just the influx of Token Druids. So I think that, you know, Control Priest is one of the decks that I think will be performing the best. However, I feel like the stats show that Priest is like not necessarily doing like the best, but that's because being getting banned a lot.
Yeah, that's always one of the weird things about the win rates of decks. It's like, well, this deck didn't have a great win rate, but it was banned in almost every single match in which it appeared. Here, though, we see kind of part of the reason that this can struggle, even if it does have theoretically strong matchups, because Rivius, he's got 2 copies of Wild Pyromancer. They are fantastic against this Odd Paladin deck, and yet he only has the coin for spells at the moment, so he needs to find more, and this is already a pretty powerful situation for Staz, given the Divine Shield Maul, always great at giving you some edge in your bad matchups.
Yeah, but Rivius only needs to find 1 extra spell, and then he can clear off most of the threat and stay alive from the powerful level up.
Master Spell.
Oh, wow. Master Spell and the Pyromancer. Does have an opportunity to coin first before the Pyromancer to try and keep his 3-2 alive.
Well, he would then leave up the additional 1-2, which is probably worth it, keeping your Pyromancer as a 3-1. Because if you coin first, then play Pyromaster Spell, you Master Spell the shields off of the recruits at least. He's gonna go ahead and Cabal.
Oh, that's ballsy. And it makes sense too. He's not gonna die to a level up. He can Master Spell.
And he does have Master Spell, right. The fact that he has Master Spell to deal with level up makes this play much more appealing.
And if I'm Staz, my opponent's kind of shown lack of AoE.
Get him.
I'm like, he also used a coin. That makes Pyromancer a little bit weaker. So you're thinking, okay, he has to either draw Dustbreaker, and even then I've gotten a ton of damage, and I also have Divine Favor refill. This is still looking very good for Staz, even though Rivius is going to go for a massive board swing here.
Oh, the Psychic Stream draw gives him a bit more insurance for the follow-up here. The fact that he does have this board allows him to clear off pretty much everything after Divine Hymn drawn as well. Staz is going to have this refill with Divine Favor.
Yeah,
he's really looking for his Vine Cleaver.
Yeah,
he needs something that actually gets in repeated damage and doesn't need to have a board that sticks around immediately.
I mean, Staz could also find lethal if he gets Blessing of Mights straight off the
That's true. If he just gets double Blessing of Might here, he's drawing 5 cards. Baku is not what he's looking for. Neither are Mecha'roos.
No, those are none of the cards that he really wants
That's
right now.
About the worst 5 cards in his deck.
Yes, very situational cards that don't do anything right now. Check this out, Rivius making the comeback on the board. Doing what Priest do best, which is barely stay alive and I guess just annoying you to death.
And Odd Paladin is not good at that. Oh, well, there's Vine Cleaver. I was going to say it's not good in this sort of spot, but that's exactly the card that he was looking for here to start generating some board, getting some damage in. He does potentially, he has either decide, okay, am I going to face, or am I leaving this Wild Pyromancer up? He wisely decides, I'm going to get rid of that. I don't want you to have something that's going to be able to kill my minions as well. But there's a Primordial Drake in Rivius' hand as well. So this is, again, going to be a difficult road for him to climb back from.
Yeah, Primordial Drake, absolutely massive in this spot. Just to get a big fat taunt in the way. And now Rivius gets to pressure a little bit of the life total as well. And that's going to be relevant pretty soon.
Okay. Owl does potentially let him hit through here. He could Void Ripper and try and clear this, but that means taking a lot of damage to the face, and you're playing against the deck with Mind Blast.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure about the Void Ripper per se. Oh, there is a cute thing you could do, which is Void Ripper and then Silence. But if you want to get like the extra 3/3 on the board, I think Blood Knight or Mekaru are just fine in this position.
Right, well, Staz is saying, well, you gotta deal with this board now. You've only got 6 damage. That's very unlikely.
Uh-oh.
And that's a dragon with no other dragon. The Primordial Drake was the only dragon Rivius had, so the Duskbreaker draw, while awesome in most situations, is not going to do anything just yet. Psychic Scream will, however, reset the board.
Is someone injured?
Rivius is really close to actually killing his opponent. If he can play Shadow Reaper into it, he has lethal the following turn.
Well, the level up here means that he gets to swing and, crucially, deny any kind of draw with the Cleric as well, or perhaps a Duskbreaker to clear up the board.
It's going to come down to if Rivius can get a dragon. No.
That's not a dragon yet.
Oh, Duskbreaker is glowing. Campbell, you said you were colorblind. My life is a lie.
There's an animation now.
Oh, okay. Rivius
the little
survives.
Swirls around it lets me know. Okay, another dragon. All right.
That is nothing. I spat all over the monitor in my absolute shock that you could recognize the border color. But the animation today I learned. Learn something new every day.
Literally, when they changed that, Mike today said on Reddit that it was like, this is so Kibler can see what his cards were. Thanks, Mike.
Wow.
I'm sure there are many other colorblind people out there who appreciate it too.
Catering to the .0000000 repeating 1%.
Oh, Stas briefly was like, okay, I can play Void Ripper. It's like, wait, if I play Void Ripper, I'm just dead to a Mind Blast, but...
Well, yeah, he's also dead to an Acolyte switch Mind Blast. Rivius survives barely and improves to a 4-0 score, which with his double Mech Cthulhu lineup, he's got Mech Cthulhu Warrior, Mech Cthulhu Druid, Control Priest, and even Warlock, and I love that lineup, and I'm really sad that Sato got to pick it first, because we were a little bit short on time for production, so we usually draft and like take turns snake drafting individually. But Sato immediately called 2 guys. I was like, dang, that's really good picks, because I was a little bit late. I was out eating. And I'm like, man, he's going to win again. How does he keep getting away with this? And both of these players are 4-0, Sequinox and Rivius. They've been shown on stream multiple times. And it's like, dude, this lineup, Control Priest, even Warlock Shell, is so good.
I love the Control Priest deck for this field in particular. You know, it's so good against Zoo. It's so good against the Token Druids. You have these tools that are very powerful against these really popular decks throughout the field. So the fact that Rivius has tweaks in his lineup to also make his decks win against the control decks makes it, I think, a great choice.
All right, well, here is the leaderboards. 4 players remain at 4-0. It's like a Quest Rogue production here. Tyler from Complexity, Doc Rivius, Alpay, and Sequinox. That is one happy Sato in the back room. And of course, 19 players tied at 3-1. Round 5 will determine who is going to be firmly in the point contention. So don't go anywhere. When we come back, more action here in the Hearthstone Championship Tour Fall Playoffs for Asia Pacific.
With the casters!
What famous movie monster would I add to the Witchwood? But I'm a huge Stranger Things fan, and I think the Demogorgon would fit right at home in the Witchwood. What would the Demogorgon's power be? Ooh, I don't know. It would probably somehow hide in your deck, or you play it and then it hides in your opponent's deck. And then when they draw it, it sort of flips controllers upside down. I haven't really given this enough thought.
I think I'd kind of like to see some form of like Loch Ness monster actually be involved in Hearthstone. I think it would be cool, just a massive kind of Leviathan.
In terms of the spookiest characters in history I'd like to see in The Witchwood, it's kind of been done with the Worgans already, but Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, one of my favourite books, as I drop in that I have read a book in my life before.
Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc.
Mike Wazowski!
If he popped on a Hearthstone board, I would just concede instantly.
It's Dracula, right? I think there's actually like a vampire bat card that's in the Witchwood, so I guess he's kind of already there.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Asia Pacific Fall Playoffs. My name is TJ, and I'm joined by the Admiral. That's admirable.
I noticed that the salute is now getting a little bit less enthusiastic as we pass into the early morning hours.
Yeah, I was just doing a little bit of light reading while I was waiting.
Yeah, me too. I was reading the deck list that you got for me here.
That's what happens
out of the package.
when he's put me in charge of the deck list. They don't make it out alive.
Straight up ripped in half.
I'm just so passionate about Hearthstone. Sometimes I don't even know my own strength.
Me too, darn it!
That's the only one we have.
Well, now it's like a puzzle. It's in 3 pieces, but there you get a good look at the deck list.
How are we going to know what his Even Warlock, Combo Shadowwalk Shaman, Death Rattle Hunter, and Token Druid have in them?
You know, that's a great question, TJ, but I tell you what we can know is what is in Tyler's Token Druid, Even Warlock, Secret Hunter, and Odd Rogue. But you won't need to know about the Token Druid on either side this time. It's been banned away from both, and rightfully so. Many lineups right now are not built to tackle that deck effectively, and as a result, they are simply choosing to ignore it. A big part of the lineups that are being built here this weekend.
Yep. And these are 2 out of the 4 players that remain currently at an undefeated 4-0 record. Tyler, of course, coming from the Europe scene, now over to the Asia-Pacific scene after moving to Vietnam. 2 players in the field of Asia-Pacific players that made the move. Nixley is the other one, a German player that made the move to Korea earlier this year. Alpi actually competed at in the 2016 APAC Summer Championship. So he's been at a championship before, but he's actually qualified for the fall playoffs as a challenger through the challenger circuit.
I think it's super cool.
It is super cool.
Only 8 people do that.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Also got number 7 on ladder in May of this year.
Yeah, so even though he qualified for the Challenger Circuit, which in order to qualify for the Challenger Circuit, you have to have not qualified for a playoffs in the past 3 seasons. And that's a rolling total. So he has been out of it for a while, but he's still been, floating around there, getting some finishes, and he does have that performance in 2016 on his resume. So a tough opponent for Tyler, as one of these players is looking for a 5-0 start, and a 5-0 start in Swiss is usually a golden ticket into the top 8.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a 100% lock, but you're pretty much locked.
No, it's a golden ticket. I mean, that should say it all. A golden ticket doesn't guarantee that you get to go to the chocolate factory.
Yeah, I mean, you could just,
Some of them turn into blueberries.
You remember that guy that tried to buy the secret recipe from Charlie? What if he just took the golden ticket from him and ran away? Like, they're just hiding out in a dark alley? The golden ticket's not a guarantee. That's my point that I'm saying. It's about as close as you get.
Yeah, sometimes you have a golden ticket and then you fall into the burning lava chocolate river and have 3rd-degree burns all over your body of deliciousness.
I still can't believe how many kids they're just gone from that stupid chocolate factory.
It's a real travesty, to be honest.
Hunter mirror match we got going on as we roll into turn 4. Not much significance has taken place in the early stages of this, but to give you an idea of the 2 deck lists here, we're looking at the traditional Death Rattle Hunter for Alpi, and Tyler's got more of that Subject 9 curve out, hybridized aggression thing going on. Does have a copy of Mossy Harbor, but that's the top end right there. This deck needs to get on the ground, get the advantage, and then win from there. But right now, he's staring down a Houndmaster Shaw, and that is one of those minions that you just look at and you feel like you have to kill this thing, lest the disastrous effects come into play from leaving it there.
But it is brutal.
Yeah, this
spend
is
that many resources to kill it.
the big one for Tyler is that it actually just yields initiative over to Alpi here. The fact that he's losing that particular curve in such a dreadful fashion with the Gluttonous Ooze, that's really what can spell the downhill spiral for Tyler in this situation. This deck needs to really keep the board and deliver damage turn after turn. There's not a lot of swing turns available, and I'd say in this match in particular, the swing turns, you know, come even fewer and farther between. Almost said it the exact same way I said it earlier, which was completely backwards.
You should just take that phrase out of your repertoire.
I'm getting rid of it.
Find a new one.
I'm going to do it to it what you did to this deck list that you fetched me earlier.
I'll try and come up with a new one that means the same thing.
Well, that's the problem is I came up with a new one. Far and few between.
Scarce. There you go.
I can get behind scarce.
Is there a phrase with scarce? Scarce as a...
You remember what happened last time we tried to use idioms?
Scarce as a mana worm in Admirable's opening hand.
It's pretty scarce. Now, if I was my opponent, that would not be the case. It would be quite, you know, very there.
Far and few between.
I both hate and love you at the same time.
Well, good thing Alpi played this Witchwood Grizzly as opposed to the Giggling Inventor, because he would have been in for a real treat.
I don't know if I'd call losing my entire board to my opponent's card while they get a 2/7 body a treat.
Yeah.
But to each their own. To own their each. Pretty much the only reasonable progress that Tyler makes this turn is with the Houndmaster. Snake Trap sets up pretty nice little turn here.
Yeah,
but
doesn't attack.
Yeah, I think attacking would be, you know, kind of a weird step to take. And Alpi not going to go for the Deathstalker Rexar here. Wants a little bit more in play before he lands it, and that might come back to, you know, cost a pretty penny in this situation.
Cost a penny pretty, as some may say.
Jeez. Tyler's now going to take that opportunity to start pushing.
Yeah.
But this is right into Katharina. Tyler been having a pretty fantastic year himself as he made the move over to Asia Pacific. 46 points.
He still would have qualified for Europe.
Yeah, and took 5th place in the team standings in the first finishing of it, alongside Casey and Crane with Team Complexity. Had a top 32 at Tours, and has also played the last 4 playoffs prior to this one in a row. All the 2017 playoffs and the summer playoffs this year.
Yeah, he got the nickname Tyler the Grinder because he just plays so much ladder. There was a point where he was ranked 1 on multiple servers at the same time.
All 3 servers at the same time.
Oh, was it all 3 servers?
Yeah.
I thought he had like dropped on 1 to 2 or something like that. But
I remember, for whatever reason, and I could be recalling this incorrectly, but I remember watching the stream where he had all 3 of them up at the same time.
Yeah, he even plays on multiple servers at the same time. So it was actually a pretty easy switch to Asia Pacific since he was already finishing in top 5 Legend quite often on those servers.
Also as the anchor of the 2018 Hearthstone Global Games team. And made top 8 last year with Theo, Tyson, Mitsuhide.
Yeah.
Long story short, it's been pretty busy. Looks like Deathstalker Rexar is going to be a little busy this turn as well. This is just such a good setup for Alpi. It just really does not get much stronger than this.
No, it does not.
You can see Tyler's face.
A little bit of frustration, a little bit.
Disappointment, frustration. It's somewhere in the lines of, I really wish this didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because Because now as he looks up at Albie's 38 life total, thanks to the Gluttonous Ooze and Deathstalker Rexar, you look at the rest of your deck and you go, I just don't think I have the cards to get there this game.
He's got his own Deathstalker Rexar, but Albie just has such a big lead, not only on board, but also will have a big lead in Zombie's creation at that point.
It's pretty much do or die for the Deathstalker Rexar next turn. If Tyler does not draw that, he's just going to be overwhelmed. I will say that's one of the things I like a lot about hero cards is that they opened you up to be able to fight card advantage battles. Just being able to out-resource your opponent entirely.
Ooh.
Big yikes. By the way, gets a Katharina Death Rattle a second time.
By the way, still has the Gluttonous Ooze that was frozen, trapped early on in the game.
By the way, Tyler gets a 1/1 off the Wandering Monster. Hey, it's summoned a 2/3.
Yeah, I have to commend Tyler's effort there to try and stick something on the board, maybe hoping that Albie's hand was full with Beast and he wasn't going to get anything from Katharina, but it is kind of, I wouldn't say risky, but a calculated play to go with the secrets there, because if he drawn spells on the next turn, he could have activated them, but there is nothing going for him in that one as Tyler scoops it up. Albie takes game 1.
Yep. TNT, the team is for there. 2 Nation.
Team 2 Nation. What in 2 Nation?
That's a good tagline. I said Tarnation backstage earlier, and I thought it was quite funny. Only I did, amongst all the people who were there.
Yeah.
But what in 2 Nation is actually funny. I'm not really laughing about it, but it is funny, and I like it.
All right. Well, you know what I like?
What's that?
Game number 2s.
Oof, me too.
And this game number 2 is coming up right after this.
With the developers.
My battle cry upon coming into the room, it's hard to say what its effect would be in-game, but I'm sure it would probably ensue in some kind of 80s musical stinger.
I think it'd just be like an exasperated sigh.
Honestly, it'd probably be a laugh, because I just laugh all the time in any situation, and sometimes inappropriately.
I'm very tired in the mornings, and I always have meetings in the mornings, so I just kind of like sit down like...
I'm pretty sure I would not have a battle cry, and I would have stealth, because that is what I do all day on accident, is accidentally startle people that I just wanted to talk to.
Oh man, if I had my own battle cry, it would probably bring joy and a smile, put a smile on everyone's face.
You just open the door and like dun 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 dun. Trumpets are thundering. It's like, who's? Oh, it's Josh again. Oh.
If I were going to try and not startle people, then my battle cry would probably be, "Hey, can I talk to you real quick?"
I don't know if I'd have a voiceover. It'd be more of an aura where like you just enter the room and everyone just starts like laughing.
If I had a battle cry whenever I walked into the room, it would be to transform the color of a random person in the room's hair.
With the casters!
A hero that would win a battle royale, I mean, it's got to be Rexar, right? He's got like the perfect aim.
I'm gonna have to go for Rexar.
He's got the steady shot.
He's just the best. He has all of the animal companions as extra friends, which I don't know if would count as cheating or not, but would get the job done.
What heroes would win in a battle royale? Well, Garrosh just does not seem to die ever in Warcraft lore, so he's my #1 pick.
Garrosh, I'm a fan of just going for the guy with the biggest muscles and the biggest hammers.
It's the brute force and gung-ho tactics are not how you win. The best way to consistently take that W is to play smart, perhaps hide every now and again when necessary, and only pick your smart fights. So I think the rogue style kind of plays towards that the best. So I'm gonna go with Valera.
I think it might be Morgul the Oracle. He's kind of unassuming, so no one try and go for him first. He can control the elements, so I think that he could make himself a good hidey hole until he's, one of the last people left, and then take his opponents by surprise.
Wouldn't it be cool if Hearthstone was a battle royale?
and there was this giant map, Hearthstone Land, we'll call it. Circular map, a lot of cool Hearthstone stuff, basically all taverns. And you drop onto the map as just yourself, random guy. And on the map is a bunch of cards. And you pick up cards and you build a deck. And then every person you meet in Hearthstone Land, you battle with your deck. And the last person standing wins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back
to Hearthstone Land.
To Hearthstone Land. It's a circular map filled with taverns and people battling with 3 cards. I don't know.
You are dumb.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, it's kind of like like the dungeon run feel or whatever. Like you get a couple of scrappy cards and you got to pick up good ones as you go along.
Yeah.
But whatever you find, that's good.
That's how they came up with the inspiration for Dungeon Run.
That's right.
They watched that clip
months before it happened.
But we're in round number 5 of the Swiss rounds, and even though we're about to jump back into Alpi versus Tyler, we do have a lot of other matches going on around the Asia Pacific region. You're getting a glimpse here. Strike Right treads red at 3-1, Aqua and 1, and then Hanaya and Surrender both at 2-2. So lots of battles going on. Once we complete this one, maybe we can hop into a few of those and see what's up towards the end of the round. But it's starting to get towards crunch time.
Yeah.
We're starting to see some players separate themselves from the pack and vying for those top 8 slots. A lot of players have already dropped from the tournament after starting with those like 1-3 starts or 0-3 or 0-4, what have you. So starting to already slim down the field, but these 2 players look like they're not going to be stopped. Both 4-0. One of them is going to move on from this match at 5-0.
That's right. Picture a big Hearthstone map where all the players up to venues and do battle. Different taverns, if you will.
Yeah. Asia Pacific is currently Hearthstone Land. Last week it was Europe, and next week it'll be the Americas. Let's get into it. Even more. Yeah.
What was that?
I was thinking for a second maybe it wasn't, but
it's like his brain just died. Even what?
Turned our curse into our strength.
Gen Greymane, even Warlock. This isn't even the deck list you ripped in half.
Even more for sugar.
This is to me like one of the more interesting Shutterwalk matchups that takes place. Namely because of the amount of pressure that Tyler's actually able to deliver. You know, a lot of people look at even Warlock decks and they view it as a style of control deck. And that sometimes is true, but that's true of basically every single deck that exists. At some point, you have to play a little bit of defense before you can get the ball rolling.
Even Warlock's an aggro deck.
Oh, in this matchup, it very much is an aggro deck as well. In its purest sense, basically every single time I've played this deck, I have completely ignored my opponent's ability to really do anything and just tried to hit them in the face as quickly as possible. And this turn 2 Acidic Swamp Ooze instead of the life tap is very indicative of that.
You can see Alpi's Road 2, who he's defeated up until this point. Round 1, he defeated Chad, which is Admirable's one to watch, but also defeated Hearthstone's one and only gold medalist in round number 3.
As well as Frosty in round number 2.
Yeah.
Just beating up snowmen.
And Tyler's defeated Strike Right, Aqua, Physics King, and Kaosai. A lot of close matchups for him, especially in the last couple.
It's getting tougher.
It is getting tougher.
I will say the one thing that looks kind of weird from this line that Tyler's taken is the fact that Mountain Giant couldn't come down. But the thing about Mountain Giant in this matchup is it's not so much about the early Mountain Giant as it is about a protected Mountain Giant. One of the last things you want to happen in this matchup is to have Volcano land on your Mountain Giant super cleanly. That is a disaster as far as Tyler is concerned. So what he's trying to do is invest into the board presence to get enough health down that Mountain Giant is outside of the range of Volcano where it's most likely to live through that. And just completely ignore everything I said. Apparently he's going to play Mountain Giant right here. This is just now confused and this is weird. I thought this was going brilliantly right up until this point.
If he had played Twilight Drake, it actually would have been enough health to be out of range of Volcano.
Yeah, and this
he could have Trip maybe tried to bait out some overload spells and then drop Mountain Giant maybe the turn after in order to have it be more effective.
You know, pretty much the thing that that I have successfully done versus Shudderwalk Shaman a number of times, and that I learned from practicing with Monsanto, who was talking to me about delaying the pressure actually creates more because of the timing of it. And I wasn't doing that prior to that, and I was having, you know, quite a losing record, I'd say, in this matchup. And then once I started doing that, I was like, wow, this is pretty darn strong.
Yeah.
You know, there's also a chance that Tyler, just because his hand contains a number of threats, is just okay with getting Volcanoed and then sticking something bigger afterwards. Like now he's rolling into a Hooked Reaver plus turn.
Yeah, Twilight Drake Hooked Reaver, that's 17 health on the board, most likely, if he just plays it from hand, because he'll have all the 10 cards.
Pretty darn big turn. And Alpy's just going to coin out the Hagatha here. It's often the way that Alpy really tries to win the game. You know, you think about the Shudderwalk combo, and you're thinking about nailing these gigantic turns, but in this position, it's really about shutting down the assault from Tyler. If he doesn't do that effectively, it's not going to work. Yeah. And Tyler taking heed of Urshock in this spot. 2 copies of it in Alpy's deck.
Yeah, so maybe that's a nod for why he opted for the Mountain Giant over Twilight Drake, just saying, I hope you don't have Volcano, because if you don't have it, you're probably dead.
Yeah.
Because I'm hitting you for a bunch.
You know, Hex is a big one too, but Hex is going to be present on any threat that happens.
Nails a Volcano. Nails a second Volcano from Hagatha.
What in the world? That is extremely rare to see back-to-back of the same card happening.
Yeah, especially back-to-back of a pretty good card.
Yeah, such an important one.
I mean, I've seen a ton of back-to-back Totemic Mites.
Oh, that's right. You were watching me earlier today. More bad looks.
I'm admirable. I'm unlucky.
I don't remember saying that.
Get yourself together, man.
Tyler's, this is bad news.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have a damage push to make.
And if he defiles, he clears his entire board except for a 1 health Hooked Reaver.
I feel like Tyler is about to just get pushed out of the game. And while he's going to hunt for the best way to really take care of this, Alpy's sitting back with an extra copy of Electra in hand and just ready to just destroy everything Tyler plays for basically the rest of the game. Yeah. Monster Harbor does a pretty decent job of getting extra stuff on board in case of like a Volcano or a Lightning Storm. Pushing as much as he can, but I feel like this one might not be in the cards. Alpy can cut it down to 21 health total on board. Beaker Lightning would make that 16.
Well, he can actually Earthshock the Hooked Reaver to take 4 health off.
Yeah. Well, oftentimes you want to save Earthshock for Twilight Drake because that's like the final minion that you know is kind of tough to answer in this deck. But Alpy's in such a comfortable position with the double Volcano pickup off of Hagatha that I think he's more free to be somewhat wasteful with his resources.
That's kind of interesting. Okay, he wanted the guarantee. So he wasted 1 damage of his attack into the Gen Greymane, but he didn't have a full clear with Volcano.
Yeah.
So he wanted to make sure that the highest damage target was killed guaranteed.
Yeah, didn't want to have to use the Beaker Lightning.
Yeah, exactly.
Rough shape for Tyler.
In a Beaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blood River Gul'dan will give him some game, but the thing is just Alpy's at 24. Okay, sorry, 22.
I mean, I agree Gul'dan's the play here, and I think it does give him some significant game. But you know, Alpy's halfway through the back. He hasn't really suffered much. Electra here to back up this board even more, and now finds a Bloodlust. So Alpy can even potentially start getting aggressive.
Well, the thing is, he's still missing combo. So Tyler can just keep chipping away and playing a minion, a threat every turn to try and challenge what Alpy's doing. Alpy still needs to find Shudderwalk, he still needs to find Grove, he still needs to find time to play the Serenite Chain Gangs, which are risky because you can just Hellfire passive as the Warlock. So Tyler, I don't think Alpy's out of this one yet. He still needs a couple of key draws before he can guarantee himself a path to victory.
Well, there's another one.
Oh, okay.
This is a very active Volcano in game 2 here. And Tyler does still have quite a bit of gas going, though. You see he's teching a copy of Bone Mare into the deck as well, just to have that extra oomph to make a push here. So I don't think Alpi actually needs to go like full combo this game in order to win. I think he just needs to get to one turn where Tyler misses a beat. As soon as that turn happens, I think that's where Alpi's going to take over the game. Big yikes.
Yeah.
Well,
that's pretty good.
Thinking of one particular Lich King card that's extremely good here. Well, Death Grip could be good, but I was thinking Army of the Dead.
I don't think he just has many minions left in his deck, and it gets him closer to fatigue. I don't know about that one.
There's a Mountain Giant.
There's a Mountain Giant.
There's another Hooked Reaver. That sounds like enough to me. Like, getting 12 attack.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, he's not going to win at fatigue. I mean, let's just wipe that out of his mind. You know, like, I mean, maybe he wins. It's like almost impossible.
I do honestly think that Death Grip probably would have been better, but that is a lot of power.
That looks great to me. Now, I'm looking at Alpi's side and seeing another Volcano. You know, the 4th one of the game. And so I think that's pretty much, it's hard to count the Volcano up too. I think that's pretty much going to, you know, stifle all assault from Tyler at this point. But
yeah,
this honestly turned out to be a pretty solid push from Tyler. Just, you know, continue to get stuff after turn.
Yeah.
Volcano with an attack on the mind control tech is a clear here. Oh, yeah, that's kind of how I feel, but I'm not invested into Tyler winning the match here.
No.
So imagine how you feel if you're invested into winning the match and that happens. Tough stuff. Still Oh, right, when you're at 30, the Hooked Reaver's not a 7/7. In my head, I was just like, why didn't he play the 7/7 last turn? Well, that would be why stupid. I'm stupid.
Tidal Surge also. Man, Agatha just coming up big for Alpi.
So from Tyler's perspective, this still isn't the worst. He can still land the Bone Mare here, but, you know, Alpi's so far through the deck as well. And that's going to spell Hex or Earthshock quite often. You know, plus you factor in all the Hagatha cards that have been generated.
Yeah.
So many bloody decisions.
It's times like these I wish players had Golden Hagatha and no other golden cards so I could tell which cards were the Hagatha cards.
Alpi has the opposite.
Yeah.
But not all of his cards are golden, only his Hex.
Wow. Wow. I mean, he resigned to his fate at this point. I mean,
he's got 5 cards left. Come on.
Exactly. You know, that's the final push. If it doesn't work, that's it.
All right, can we get there?
Hang on, let me count it up. Doing a number crunch real quick. Nope. Well, he needs to connect with this Geist about 7 times.
Skulking Geist would have been good. Probably any card but the very last one. Even from the Army of the Dead. Sure, just give me an extra 6 health and 4 power on the board. And Alpi knows that there is no threat slot, so he's free to just pretty much do whatever he wants.
Yeah, I mean that's the final nail in the coffee right there.
And you can see 2-0 lead for Alpi.
Tyler, he's looking not so hot right now after this down 0-2 circumstance. Fear not. It is only another Lich King that you're facing off against Tyler. Even Warlock left for Alpi after this. And it's also teched in a copy of Bone Mare. To me, it looks like completely mirrored lists. Nope. There is 1 Acidic Swamp Ooze in Alpi's deck. There are 2 in Tyler's. And that difference, you know, it's kind of tough to spot because, again, my deck list was ripped into 2 pieces and then I decided to rip it into a 3rd. I don't know why I did that.
For dramatic effect.
It was very dramatic.
It was. But Tyler, he's got to beat Even Warlock 3 times in a row. And Even Warlock is not easily targetable deck. It's got a lot of game versus just about anything. Against aggressive decks, it's got Hellfire Defile. Against control decks, it's got big things that come out very early. It doesn't mean
That's the end of it. Now, I will say,
did I get through all the decks?
I think,
aggro control. Yep, that's it.
I think the Even Warlock matchup is ever so slightly in Alpi's favor here. He's got 2 copies of Dread Infernal versus Tyler's 1. Tyler has the 2nd copy of Acidic Swamp who's in place. But besides that, Tyler's got Odd Rogue, which I think is one of the worst matchups for Even Warlock. And he's got Secret Hunter, which is also a pretty bad matchup for Even Warlock. So Tyler, I think, is still in this one here, even though right now it looks quite grim.
Yeah. Secret Hunter, quite poor because of the ability to deal damage from hand and the ability to have a very fast start. Odd Rogue, because of Vile Spine Slayer, honestly, like, if that card comes down on any of your big threats,
you know, and pure raw damage.
Pure raw damage.
I will say that Alex found 2 of the most important cards in the matchup, though. He's found both Spellstone and Mountain Giant. You know, a lot of times against Odd Rogue, my initial instinct with Even Warlock was to clear their board with Hellfire and then get a threat online. And in my opinion, after playing this matchup enough, it is quite the opposite. Your goal is to get a Mountain Giant in play and hit them with it over and over again and hope that you have anything to hang on by just a thread. And that often means a Spellstone just to gain a little bit of life and offset their damage, or a Hellfire post Mountain Giant and hope that it can continue to deliver damage. If you try to go for just a pure defensive game plan, it oftentimes just fails.
Yeah, they're just going to dagger you in the face, you're going to play Hooked Reaver, and then they're going to kill it with Vile Spine Slayer.
Yeah, like in this spot, Tyler, you know, has a wealth of options, but they all come at some sort of cost. If he takes this route, his Fledgling is going to be open to some sort of removal from Alpi. If he takes the aggressive stance with Vicious Fledgling here, it means that his Vile Spine Slayers come much, much slower.
Yeah.
And so Tyler...
At least 2 turns slower, and that's if he picks up a 1-drop.
Yeah, and so Tyler's, I think, very smartly recognizing that he doesn't need to just make an immediate push. He just simply needs to get a push and then back it up.
And if you get a Hellfire out onto a 3/3 and a 1/3, you're not that upset about that because they do just get to develop into nothing. Now, Tyler doesn't really have too much to develop with.
I think Tyler's quite happy if he sees Hellfire here because it means he's not seeing Mountain Giant. And Alpi going to immediately Hellfire here. It does buff up 2 Spellstones, so I think that's part of the immediacy of the play. Tyler's free to, you know, throw caution to the wind with the health total from Alpi, knowing he's got 2 Vile Spines in hand.
Shields up.
Guy number 1 promptly dealt with. just pointed the Vile Spine at the face for a second. Another interesting play here for Tyler. Do you trade with this little 2/3? What does it enable? Decide not to.
I think you do. If you don't trade, a trade in the SI7 agent plus the file.
It's not a full clear.
It wouldn't be a full clear, but it would clear off 2 minions. This gives you the most guaranteed.
Immediately played for Alpi. And that'll be 2nd Vile Spine, and Tyler looking poised.
Still got the 2 buff Spellstones, but it's a wide board state. Funkelmancer's in hand. No other defensive plays.
That's dead.
Yeah. He's dead.
That's why the matchup's bad.
Yeah. Now, if they don't draw a Vile Spine Slayer,
it's a much, you know, more scrappy brawl that takes place. But Tyler still, you know, overall has an advantage where just, you know, pure raw damage is concerned.
All right, it took him a sec.
Well, now's not the time to quickly play through that. You want to triple check that and make sure you're good to go.
Yeah. But I mean, he had Funkelmancer plus, so
I'm counting.
Yeah, and Tyler just kind of puts his head in his hands, like, what?
Well, I mean, that could be a thing, you know, Tyler stopping himself and recognizing that first 2 games, like, I was feeling kind of bad that I lost those 2, so just slow myself down, take a second, and make sure I'm focused. You know, I think back to the Firebat play in the 2014 Hammerstein stage, where he goes to his turn, he's got lethal, and he's counting on his hand, and you see him count it like 5 times in a row just on one hand, and it's, you know, a relatively small number. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what you should do. Make sure you don't mess up. This is one of the highest stakes matches you're going to play in a long time.
Yeah, and even though this is not a match to qualify for the World Championship, it's still a match to go 5-0 in the Swiss rounds, which probably qualifies you to a top 8, which could qualify you to the Fall Championship, which could qualify you to the World Championship. Baby steps, Admirable. That's what it's all about. And currently, Tyler taking baby steps in this series, still at a deficit. We'll find out if he can make the comeback right after this.
Well played!
In this video, I'm going to teach you how to improve your Hearthstone skills by showing you some cool math tricks that the pros use to spot lethal damage. No calculators required. Spotting lethal easily is a combination of 2 techniques, sequenced addition and off timing. I'm going to go over both in order. Sequenced addition is a mathematical trick that'll make it so you'll never have trouble calculating damage on complex board states again. First, stop trying to add up all that damage at once. Most pro players find it easier to find lethal by grouping damage into 3 categories: on board, in hand, and hero power. Essentially, before ever looking at your cards, add up your total damage on the board. Then, figure out how much damage the spells in your hand contribute, for example the swipe in your hand. Last, add your hero power's damage. By sequencing your lethal addition like this, you'll make it much easier to accurately count the total damage you have, and you'll avoid accidentally forgetting to count a damage source. Sequenced addition should be paired with our second technique, off timing. Essentially, off timing refers to a technique that most pros use to perform lethal math during their opponent's turn. Rather than checking for lethal during your turn, when you have to actually make plays, you should train yourself to check for lethal every time you pass to your worthy foe. As you begin adding, you'll quickly see if you're close to lethal or not. If you're close, finish the math, and keep the total updated over your opponent's turn. It's much easier to keep your lethal count current than you might think. Just subtract any minion that your opponent kills, and at the start of your turn, add the new card you drew for your turn if it contributes damage, and that's it. If you use this technique, you'll start your turn instantly knowing if you have lethal on board or not, rather than struggling to do the math as the rope ticks down. Now, you know how the Hearthstone pros are able to spot lethal so quickly and reliably. By sequenced addition, or always adding lethal in ordered groups, your math will be accurate and easier to perform. And by off timing, you'll be doing this math during your opponent's turn, when you're not pressured to make plays. So try out these 2 techniques together and watch yourself win more Hearthstone games and finish higher in HCT tournaments. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, brought to you by the coaches at GamerSensei, please visit playhearthstone.com/esports for more of the Well Played series and all things Hearthstone esports.
Well played!
Welcome back, everybody. The Asia Pacific Fall Playoffs. We're currently in round number 5. The players you see on your screen, Tyler and TNT Alpi, are currently 4-0 in the Swiss portion of this event. Can Alpi move to 5-0 or can Tyler move to 5-0? Find out on the next episode
of Hearthstone.
Which starts right now, actually. Waiting all day for this.
You've been casting like all day too.
We have turned our curse into our
texture.
Tyler's hand texture is quite poor right now. It is all responsive stuff. He is not the one responding in this game.
Huge draws.
Not one of them. I feel like, you know that guy that does the envelopes? He puts them to his forehead and he says what the answer is, and then he opens it up and reads a ridiculous question. Yeah, that's what that just felt like. That one's not bad.
Deathstalker Rexar could give him an alternate game plan.
Well, Alpy's got an alternate game plan too. It's called Kill Him Real Fast. Whew, this is a dead turn right here. I don't think Tyler's going to be on the Rexar game plan.
Well,
it's kind of working right now, honestly.
He's got a cheap beast. So Dire Maul now, kill command is active with the hero power. So his max damage is 10, but this Sun Fury Protector is actually going to be a big deal. Let's see. Raid Leader, not the best.
Shields up.
That's a big yikes turn there. I'm trying to figure out how Tyler gets out of this, though. I mean, he's taking so much damage if he attacks this bow here. You know, I think Alpy has an opportunity to just get really aggressive.
He's got double Hellfire.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's going to do. This is absolutely the right call here from Alpy. You got to throw caution to the wind sometimes and just start going. You're like, you know what, this is not going to work. If I try to play this defensive game plan, I'm going to get stuffed. That's what opens Tyler to perhaps a transition into a different game plan. Alpy's getting quite low.
Still a turn away from the big taunt in the Lich King. Mountain Giant's still a big boy.
Whoa.
Well, there's no Hunter hero power anymore. That trade is very respectful.
That is quite respectful.
Of, I don't even know. What time? Was he able to check for the secret? That's
an interesting point. Well, the secret wasn't down. It was just played.
Yeah, so there was no secret up. So that's a lot of damage to just give up. But
I'm trying to think of like the disaster points that hit from Build-A-Beast.
Yeah, maybe Tyler pushes a few points of damage and then clears the board or something, or presents a taunt with Build-A-Beast.
Well, there goes the tiny beast for kill command, and I think Tyler's, you know, considering damage here. You know, honestly, I didn't even see what the secret was.
Explosive trap.
So he is protected from a Hellfire.
Yeah.
He's actually protected from 2 Hellfires in this spot.
Maybe it's not explosive trap.
What was it? I mean, I was just not watching it, to be perfectly frank.
I was right.
Why did he attempt? Oh, you know what? Hellfire opens up drawing kill command, and I think, did he need kill command anyway?
Oh, tracking!
Tyler's like losing it. He can't find it. But Wandering Monster protects him for a turn. Still got Build-A-Beast. Cheap Beast. Check 1. Take the Angry Chicken to maximize charge. No, it doesn't, because you don't get Stone Tusk Boar then. Because I was thinking Tundra Rhino on the 1 cost would maximize the number of charges you get, but Tundra Rhinos you get on the first cycle, not the second cycle.
Yeah.
It's coming down to the wire.
I think it's Lich King every time here, right?
Well, Albie, I think, he's trying to figure out if there's a way he can life tap profitably. And I'm looking at the deck list, and I'm not really seeing much. You know,
yeah, Spellstone does nothing in that situation because you're trading to the beast every time. Lich King gives you the chance for a death coil out for lethal.
Look at Tyler. He knows it's coming down. Not
Bear
it.
Shark.
He's still not dead on the following turn's attack, though.
Yeah.
And there's Arphis, which can provide a Lich King card that perhaps kills Alpy in this spot.
Tyler just thinks he's dead to Death Coil right now, but Alpy doesn't have the damage yet. He's protected because that's a wandering monster. Gets a taunt too, so has another layer of protection.
If Lich King is betrayed by his own pup. Reaver Gul'dan for Albi.
Tyler just, he's in agony right now.
Huge draw. Oh my. Yeah, you just don't find a better one than that.
Nope.
So Tyler needs
Death and Decay? That's the worst one because he has no health to work with. He's dead no matter what because hero power plus Hellfire. He can't even get a miracle.
Bat lifesteal?
No, it wouldn't be enough.
That wouldn't be enough to protect him?
Well, he wouldn't be able to do anything with the bloat bat.
You just play it and attack. It's like the lifesteal rush one.
No. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It would have to be exactly vicious scale height, right?
That gains 3, 4, 5. That gains 7 health.
No.
And then you would have 2 for the freezing trap. The wandering monster protects something, but it freezing traps something. So you would take 6 on the backswing. I mean, regardless of which, that's not the one he got. So. Can't obliterate.
And he's dead to just hero power plus Hellfire.
Yep. Wow, that was a number of roller coaster turns that took place there.
Yeah.
Over halfway through the deck, Tyler cannot find a kill command to wrap it up. And Alpi going to take it 3-1, moves on to 5-0 match score.
What in 2 Nation was that?
I'll tell you what, TJ, it's our second challenger in 2 playoffs that is showing some tremendous success in the Hearthstone Championship Tour. This is where it starts for a lot of players. You know, every single player, no matter what, had to get started in tournaments somewhere. And while Albi hasn't started there, Albi's definitely looking for bigger finishes than what he's had thus far.
That's right. Of course, referencing Hatul from the Europe playoffs who qualified, and he was, that is where he got his start. Of course, he organized a bunch of 5-star gatherings, had a lot of tournament experience, obviously came in with the right mindset when qualified. I'll be trying to look for kind of that same path. Tyler definitely not out of it yet. 4-1, still a great score to move on. He's got 2 more rounds of play left in Swiss. So he's still sitting pretty well, especially if Alpi wins out. Tyler's tiebreakers are good. Looking at his past opponents, he's got some good ones up there. So it's going to be close for him, but if he wins out, he's guaranteed. If he loses 1 more and ends 5-2, since he started 4-0, I still like his chances.
Yeah.
But definitely a very close match. And even though Secret Hunter had some close games there, still struggling on stream.
I think it's just a deck that is not as well positioned as players had anticipated. You know, aggro stepped up a bit in this particular tournament, and then also like there are some control decks out there that can still give Secret Hunter a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
So those stepping up a bit, I think, is a big deal as well. But overall, I think Secret Hunters, it's not like a bad deck. I feel like it's just one of the weak points in this tournament where players were struggling to find that 4th deck that they really liked.
Yeah. Now, granted, we haven't seen the incredibly explosive starts with like Dire Mole, Crackling Razor Maul, or Corn Crackling Razor Maul, Wind Fury, kill him on turn 5 with kill command, those kinds of starts. But still, I'm curious to see the statistics at the end of the day, where Secret Hunter is going to land as far as win rate goes, and how many people with those undefeated lineups have it in their decks. So we'll have to see. But that match is over. Alpi moves on 5-0. But don't worry, plenty more round 5 action coming up right after this.
Welcome to the Hearthstone Championship Tour's next stop in Seoul, South Korea.
Oh!
Teams in Hearthstone are more important than ever, even in an individual game like Hearthstone.
Muzzy, Amnesiac, and I are on the same team. Muzzy crushes North America. He's been the point leader for 2 years in a row already. He's not going to get third year in a row without a fight.
We are back with some extra matches for you guys, as always, just to fill out the round. I'm not Sottle, he's not Raven. I think it is the other way around, but I'm sure you guys know that by now, or at least I would hope so. We're going to be checking in with the Surrender versus Hinaya game, and I believe we're going to go into game number 1. So we're going to check out the whole series for you guys, as I believe that one went relatively quickly, as it often does with Admirable and TJ, and I don't know whether that's because the matches go quickly or whether the constant memeing makes it seem like it goes faster anyway. But let's get straight into it. Surrender on the Hunter and Hinaya on the Hunter. But it's Spell Hunter. It's a little bit different.
It is, yeah. Not a deck that we see a lot of representation of in this tournament. Players who are looking for this style of deck have moved towards more of that Subject 9 Hunter that just has that little bit of consistency that come from just some of the high-quality minions that you can play, you know, Bear Shark, those kinds of things. Of course, Houndmaster Shaw just being such a huge benefit to the deck as well. But, you know, Spell Hunter has its upsides as well, and of course, Hatul qualified out of Europe with his own little unique take on Spell Hunter with that Dire Frenzy packed in there as well.
Yeah, well, just the early couple of turns and hero powers got shoot from across the board from Hinaya. Just a couple of things, you might not really be familiar with him. He actually won at the Tokyo Tour Stop this year, and he kind of came out of nowhere to win it, to be completely honest. Yes. Not tons of tournament experience, as far as we're aware. Not really any playoff or any playoff experience either, but he does or did practice for this event with Glory, who is a name we know a little bit more. So when your practice partner's good, it often means that you are also decent. Not many good players practice with bad players, right? That's just not really how it works. So he's got a tour stop to his name, something that not many players at all can say, but he hasn't really got the depth of accomplishments yet. But currently on 2-2, he's fighting to keep his chances alive in this playoff.
As is Surrender in this position, as he's 2-2 as well, trying to hang on to the hopes and dreams of my co-caster here, who has yet again picked Surrender for victory.
It worked once, so it'll work again. Lightning can strike twice.
Right.
I will be honest, I like the lineup, and it could well just be one of those factors that we see quite often is the lineup's good, but not everyone with that lineup can win.
Yes.
That's just not how it works, right? Because you'll face each other, for example. We are getting a couple of freezes, I think. I don't know if that's just on our end or not. We'll get that checked, but if you guys have seen that, apologies. But yeah, you know, I'm very interested to see how this deck and how this kind of lineup has performed by the end of the day and by the end of the weekend as well, because it looks strong on paper for me. That's a very wide board. Enjoy it, Spell Hunter.
That looks strong on more than just paper. That looks strong in reality. Surrender pretty much nailing the secret Spellstone curve, and now Hinaya just really does not have a great deal of game to come back against this. Being punished a little bit as well by that Hunter's Mark nerf that was a long time ago now. Just the single mana increase to 1 mana means that he can't take care of much of this board state with the Coin Deathstalker Rexar. Just leave way too many 3/3s hanging around on the board, still pressuring him.
Do you think the Hunter's Mark Explosive Trap Coin Kill command is then the correct step?
It does look a lot more promising.
Because it kind of does what you would want that Rexar to do.
Can also just use Wing Blast instead, right? Yeah.
Oh, sure, with the weapon swing.
Yeah, he can swing to kill the minion first, get the discount, and then still squeeze in that Hunter's Mark to take care of the majority of the board state.
Coin Hero.
Coin Hero Bow, yeah. Assert dominance. But now, that Houndmaster was the draw that I was going to point out straight away that is the biggest punish for this kind of preemptive Hunter's Mark play in a mirror match, and now with double kill command backing all of this up from Surrender, this is not looking promising.
These are the moments where when you have even just one kill command, you're like, okay, my plan is pretty good right now. I get them in the face, and well, as well, this series is for, you know, for tournament life at this point. You lose 3 and you're going home. Right. Look at the speed.
Yeah, no one's really messing about this tournament. We have mentioned before that APAC does seem to have a tendency to just play a little bit faster than the other regions. And time again, series and series again, that does seem to be the case as these players are playing at a very pace.
I will say this kind of matchup, especially going how it's gone so far for Surrender, you have limited options, so decision making is normally quicker when you just don't have as many options available to you at any given turn. But yeah, the speed is kind of incredible, but it doesn't matter about speed. If you blinked, you missed it. Surrender takes a game with his Hunter very quickly due to that kill command in. It really does just show the power of Spellstone still. It's been knocking around for a while now, but creating that many 3-3s with the tempo you can gain from the secrets you use to activate it, if your opponent just doesn't have a direct answer that turn, it's just 12 damage.
Yeah.
Like, that 12 damage is nearly half your health against an aggressive deck. Like, it's too much.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, in that matchup, I prefer to be the minion deck, like the more mid-rangey, Secret 9, Secret Hunter, whatever you want to call it. But that really wasn't the factor in that. Like, normally in that matchup, you just like having those early minions that you can stick and snowball, and that's just puts the Spell Hunter on the defensive, and when you're playing a Hunter Mirror, you generally want to be the one being the aggressor. But in that matchup we just watched, that wasn't really the case. That was just one player got the secret Spellstone curve, and the other one didn't, and that's more or less game over at that point.
Especially Hunter, you don't, other than you Spellstoning back and saying, okay, you get to attack first, but we both have the 4 3-3s, you don't really have any other options to beat it, right? Like, you don't have just a Hellfire, for example, to just say, okay, you got me, but here's my AoE to clear it off.
Yeah.
I believe we are going to pretty swiftly, in full theme of this series so far, just getting to game number 2. I will say as well, just to let you guys know, the Druids were banned both ways. So both Druids gone, not too much of a surprise based on this lineup. So it's Hunter, Warlock, Rogue versus, guess what? Hunter, Warlock, Rogue.
Yep, and both of the banned Druids are, of course, Token Druid, which makes sense. That is generally the ban when these faster lineups come up against each other. The Token Druids do tend to bite the dust, and that's why I've kind of led towards the kind of Control Priest even lock lineups. I think not having to automatically ban Token Druid is just a big advantage for you in this tournament.
I will, I'll give you this. I am impressed with Dark Radius. Like, you put Mechathune in your deck, like, yeah, and you're winning a lot.
Right.
Like, I will not argue with that one.
Yeah, I've made this point multiple times. As much as I do enjoy winding up my broadcast colleagues about my success in predictions, like, honestly, yeah, I think I'm pretty good at like looking at the tournament deck list and divining who's got the best deck list and then combining that with the best player. But that's the easy job. The hard job is bringing that lineup in the first place before you know what the metagame is going to look like. So, the players that I pick that do well, it's full credit to them. They're the ones doing the hard work, and I do think Dak Rivis' lineup in particular is fantastic. And of course, the only defeat either of my players have picked up in this tournament so far is when they were matched up against each other with the undefeated record. But honestly, Raven, if I had to pick a favorite child, it would be Rivius.
Ooh.
Yeah. Sorry, Sequinox. You're a good-looking dude and everything, but you don't have enough Mechathunes in your lineup.
I'm buying up more than 0.
Yeah.
So yeah, Strike Right taking down Tread's Red as well in the round. So yeah, Strike Right play we've seen a few times across a few tournaments now. Getting back to this one, Surrender on the Zoo did get the Kalseth off quite early, and he is making use of this because, again, minion pressure. And you know what? Like, Spell Hunter just doesn't really have game versus this. There needs to be the Spellstone, and there is the Spellstone, but Surrender has the initiative, which is all important when, with these Kalseth minions, he's either getting trades he shouldn't be allowed, because this Librarian shouldn't be allowed to kill a 3-3, or getting trades that are even better, like the Mushroom guy, who is actually just killing off the 3-3 and surviving as well. Now there's a heal available with the second enchanter.
Yeah, second Mushroom guy really does make this turn a little bit extra disgusting. I don't know whether he wants to be mana efficient here, potentially, with the Life Drinker instead. Now life tapping, giving himself a lot more options with the doubling in pickup as well.
I think I like the life tap because you always give yourself more options and you can't lose it out. Your turn's still great. At worst, if you played this 4-4, well, you're still having a good turn. You have a 4-3 and a 4-4 on the board. They have 1 3-3, like, that's still good. And now you have 2 3-3s extra on the board. Because this is, I think, the most powerful Zoo games are when you aren't tapping to directly 2 cards a turn. You tap into 3 and 4, and you keep that breadth of hand size up, so then you have as many options as play. It helps when you have cards like Doubling Imp, Saronite Chain Gang that kind of pick up the slack on not playing as many minions because you were tapping.
It helps when you go heal Happy Ghoul start into Keleseth on 2.
Agreed. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You have minions that can
Oh,
make
right,
up.
yeah.
You have minions that can make up for the lack of, like, not playing as many, if that makes sense.
It does constantly baffle me that Zoo continues to be as successful as it is, because you look at the like quality of card that's in this deck, it's appalling. Like, all of these minions suck in a vacuum. Like, Fungal Enchanter is very weak, Lightbreaker is very weak. Yeah, Dreadlord's a very good card. You know, Voodoo Doctor's just an incredibly weak card, has been for the longest time, but they just all come together when you can draw so many cards with the consistency of Life Tap. Just a big pile of very mediocre minions can still be very overwhelming.
And also, I've said this, I think, mainly since Barnes was out, but there is an inherent value, especially in a tournament where you're playing so many games, to just saying, sometimes my deck just wins. Like, sometimes you get double Ghoul Heal, and then you're so unlikely to lose, you've just bagged the easiest win of your tournament, probably. And there is a certain value of that when you're playing so many games of these decks in a tournament. Surrender's going to have to deal with these. Ooh, that's a good one. Well, yes. Wait, what's the other secret? Oh, explosive. That's fine. If it was Freezing Trap, that would be a bit awkward. I'm surprised he doesn't tap again.
I don't like tapping here. I think it's time to just go for the throat, to be perfectly honest. I don't think you want to be hanging around too long and like have a low pressure turn and then your opponent just rock Delars or something and you've given them that time they need to just get like an insane
The only difference to me is this board, instead of a 4-4, looks like a 3-2.
Yeah.
Like, it's not tons different, is it? And you gain a card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying.
You're arguing with yourself. I didn't even disagree with you.
Didn't you? I'm so used to it.
I was just acknowledging what you said. You're so defensive.
I didn't even hear what you said. I just presumed it was negative. I was like, nah, it's probably disagreed and say it's bad. He normally does. Voodoo Doctor. Heard what you said a few years ago about him not being a good card.
Yeah.
He's been to the gym.
Yeah.
Coming back now to say hello. 7-6, 1 mana,
One mana,
heal
7-6.
2. Oh, what is this game right now? A win for Surrender, I'm going to say, unless... The problem is, any high-impact beast that can be made costs too much mana to warrant like this. If it was a 10-mana turn, or if you could make it last turn, great. But I don't think 6 mana is enough, even with good beasts.
You got Bloatbat, Toyn Paws. Oh, he didn't take the Bloatbat, but Cave Hydra is good enough, I guess.
Say Bloatbat, Toyn?
Toyn, yeah, I don't know.
Pawn. Just start trying to mix them both.
Yeah.
Toyson.
Yeah, I guess Cave Hydra does the job.
It'd be so sick if it works backwards as well. That you didn't have to attack to do its effect.
Right.
Oh no, I'll play my Doom Guard. Play this off with one hand.
Dares summon me.
Why not? I'm not really saying too much because I now just don't believe there's an exact card that wins the game.
No, I was sat there in silence, just kind of considering various like Rock Delar into multiple 1 and 0 mana card outs, but they just don't exist in that
and
position.
the problem with Builder Beast is I believe Bloatbat Lifesteal with Scalehide would be the best, so it can rush. Probably with Taunt then would be the best, because the rush does nothing, so it doesn't kill itself off.
Yeah,
but that would be enough.
And it has too much health, it's rushing into a Void Walker.
That's what I'm saying, it can't kill itself to actually blow up anyway, so that was game number 2 to Surrender, pretty convincingly I'll say, but again, he had a very powerful start, and Spellhunter isn't a deck that can come back in any given game, I feel, against aggro. It has to be perfect, like we've seen before, like double back-to-back flanking strikes, for example, but not when Kel'Theth has been played and everything's a 4-4 instead of a 3-3. It's a little bit awkward.
Yep. It's not a great deal to break down in either of those games, really. One was just Secret Spellstone and just Hunter Mirror with one behind the play the whole time, and then the other was just happy Ghoul start into Kel'Theth with Zoo. And as you said, there's merit in bringing decks like that to a tournament, because that's what the decks are designed to do, is just curve out very consistently, take initiative very consistently, and then the decks that draw an early curve less consistently because they're built to be a little bit later can sometimes just suffer and crumble under the pressure, and that's exactly what we're watching.
Yep, they can fall behind very easily, just as Surrender's opponent has Hinaya. Can he fight back, or is Surrender going to take it 3-0? Find out after this.
Well played!
In this video, I'm going to teach you how to improve your Hearthstone skills by showing you some cool math tricks that the pros use to spot lethal damage. No calculators required. Spotting lethal easily is a combination of two techniques, sequenced addition and off timing. I'm going to go over both in order. Sequenced addition is a simple mathematical trick that'll make it so you'll never have trouble calculating damage on complex board states again. First, stop trying to add up all that damage at once. Most pro players find it easier to find lethal by grouping damage into 3 categories: on board, in hand, and hero power. Essentially, before ever looking at your cards, add up your total damage on the board. Then, figure out how much damage the spells in your hand contribute, for example the swipe in your hand. Last, add your hero power's damage. By sequencing your lethal addition like this, you'll make it much easier to accurately count the total damage you have, and you'll avoid accidentally forgetting to count a damage source. Sequenced addition should be paired with our second technique, off timing. Essentially, off timing refers to a technique that most pros use to perform lethal math during their opponent's turn. Rather than checking for lethal during your turn, when you have to actually make plays, you should train yourself to check for lethal every time you pass to your worthy foe. As you begin adding, you'll quickly see if you're close to lethal or not. If you're close, finish the math, and keep the total updated over your opponent's turn. It's much easier to keep your lethal count current than you might think. Just subtract any minion that your opponent kills, and at the start of your turn, add the new card you drew for your turn if it contributes damage, and that's it. If you use this technique, you'll start your turn instantly knowing if you have lethal on board or not, rather than struggling to do the math as the rope ticks down. Now, you know how the Hearthstone pros are able to spot lethal so quickly and reliably. By sequenced addition, or always adding lethal in ordered groups, your math will be accurate and easier to perform. And by off timing, you'll be doing this math during your opponent's turn, when you're not pressured to make plays. So try out these 2 techniques together and watch yourself win more Hearthstone games and finish higher in HCT tournaments. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, brought to you by the coaches at GamerSensei, please visit playhearthstone.com/esports for more of the Well Played series and all things Hearthstone esports.
Well played!
Well played indeed. Is Surrender going to beat Hinaya? We're going to find out. Yeah, currently 2-0 up though, with 2 very convincing games, 2 very quick games as well. Both players playing at speed. Casey and Standardachi will be proud of at this point. We are in the Asia Pacific playoffs. Let's get back to this one. Surrender on the road as his last deck to win with, and Hinaya is saying, well, gotta win with this Spell Hunter.
Yep.
May as well queue it again.
Surrender has the perfect start. Diamol on 1. That is a Diamol. I see no difference. Just a 3rd copy of Diamol in the deck for some reason.
Because Diamol's a good card. Why not play 3? Does he play 4 though?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Normally it's 3, right?
It is. He's actually playing all 4. 2 copies of Diamol, 2 copies of Crystallizer. Yeah, two Diamols and 2 Diamols. Yeah, I mean, so people watching are probably extremely confused right now, but basically Crystallizer came into the deck quite recently and people got confused as to why it was being played. They thought it was like replacing Diamol for some reason, and then people started a very pointless argument about what was better, like some random beast synergy that you can get from Blinkpox sometimes, or the extra armor that sometimes plays around Alexstrasza. The answer is shut up and stop having that pathetic argument. You just want more copies of Diamol in your deck. 1/3s are amazing. Play all of them.
The amount of times I've heard this. We've had literally this conversation so many times. But no, you're absolutely correct. You want a 1/3 body. So is Squire. A Squire's dropped?
Squires are usually what goes,
removal,
yes. Because Squires are so often just 1-2s now. That's the big difference. Because there's so many 1-3s coming back at you the other way. There's so many like token druid tokens. There's so much candle shot, like all this kind of stuff. That a 1-1 with a divine shield is now just so often a 1-2 that just take them out and put a 1-3 in, and you're gonna have a better time.
What about a 1-2 that makes 2-2s?
Oh, now you're talking.
Yeah.
Now you're speaking my language.
That was a really good Wandering Monster. It's just leaving something on the board and soaking up that deck hand is actually big now. Right now, Isha. Okay. Okay. There's an Eaglehorn Bow and a Candle Shot, weapon of choice available for Hinaya next turn. And Leash as well if surrender.
Yeah, this is just a brutal turn though. This is just too swingy. It's just way too swingy. Deadly Poison SI.
Deadly Poison OP.
Completely undoes all that good work that came from the Wandering Monster on the previous turn, and now Hinaya's just directly back on the back foot.
Wandering Monster.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see a problem with coining it out. You're fucking your Spellstone, and also you don't need coin next turn, so you can just play Spellstone, so... I would say Hinaya just about keeping up with this Wandering Monster draw. Pretty big, actually.
Spellstone is going to do an awful lot of work on the follow-up now. Because Odd Rogue, this Rogue, at least with the particular hand, can't really make the board state that preemptively, controls the of the Spellstone coming down. Can't get enough attacks in play to really start being able to deal with it.
Just a note there, you do swing in with that weapon because it's big enough to kill any 3-drop, along with the 1.
3-drop.
Well, why not any?
There's 3 drops for more than 4 health.
Yeah, I said along with the 1-3 if required, right? Like a target.
But there's still like Injured Blade Master, the Drakari, what's it called? The like 2-8 thing. Yeah.
Oh, Drakari.
Yeah.
Cheese.
There's a couple.
There's also a lot that can kill the 1-3 unneededly.
Yep.
Now we're Giggling Inventor. Stabilization, but Surrender is running low on the gas right now. And Unleash the Hounds plus Explosive Chat.
It's just Explosive Chat. Top of the morning to you.
Yeah, I went to I went to Chapstick.
Steady. Yeah.
I'm thinking it's some kind of spy weapon. Oh, can I borrow your chapstick? Yeah, oh, explosive, cool, face blown off. Maybe something that could be in Boomsday.
Has science gone too far?
Next Bond film, explosive chapstick.
To be fair, some of like the early gadgets in the
really
early Bond films were about that crap.
The crocodile cracked me up the most. You see that?
Yeah.
I love it. I wanted the new Bond to be a throwback to the old ones and go really silly. But already now he's actually making a strong push here. And even these dogs are not... Alright. I love it when the game plays out to make me sound silly mid-sentence. I was going to say, even these dogs help out with this Giggling Inventor. They don't really help out with 2 Giggling Inventors is the issue right now. He's only going to attack with the
I think that's a great
trap.
choice,
Yeah.
exactly. If it's Freezing Trap, A, you want your Henge Clan Thug to be hanging around on the board. B, if it's Freezing Trap, you just played a Giggling Inventor. You're really happy to have a 7-mana Giggling Inventor in your hand, because that's still a good card.
Yep. The unfortunate thing now is with that setup, maybe once Surrender sees the ordering of these secrets, it could be a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you.
Go on.
If you think it's the first one was freezing, what minion do you attack with?
If you think the first one was freezing, what minion do you attack? The Giggling Inventor, yeah.
It's more value all around, right?
I think so.
The issue being, of course, if people don't realize the explosive goes off afterwards and kills the other ones.
Right.
But Giggling, replayable this turn, so it would be better.
I guess the weapon swing first, yeah, eliminates a couple of the auxiliary secrets that it might be. Then you can attack the Giggling Inventor into the minion, so you're only activating Freezing Trap and not Explosive, and then you can just kind of pick your poison from there. So yeah, I like the way it's surrendered. And now, he can just leave the henchman stuck there, because then if he attacks next turn, he's able to connect it to face. So Hinaya has to find yet another answer to the Hench Clan Thug, which he does with the flanking strike.
And this game's, I feel it's actually really close, because every time Hinaya is just holding on, he's also pressing hero power.
Yep.
And one kill command away from a kill very soon. So it's all about what surrender can do. That's just another secret to try and contest with. Ooh. The attacks have been made, the one that can be tested now, and then you can just Blood Knight. Yeah, I like this. Make one, big boy.
Just make a very, very large jet.
The taunts still do the taunt job, right? So it's fine. And it actually beats Unleash anyway, so... It's have to be what, Unleash Leok? Just play the Firefly though? Is it unnecessary?
Maybe.
Because
yeah,
that
you might be right.
You can go 2/2/2 and then 2/4/6 hero power with Leok Unleash.
I think you know that card in hand is not either Animal Companion or
that is true. That is
right?
true. But like I said, did you need the 1/2 to win the game? Very, very nitpicky. Surrender took the win 3-0. And we've talked a lot about Hunter decks. We talked a lot about Death Rattle Hunter last weekend for the European playoffs. This weekend is the story of the mid-range Secret Hunter, whatever you want to call it. But then we saw the story of Spell Hunter, and it wasn't a good read.